Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the October 22nd regular council meeting, the municipality of Jasper. Before we get into the agenda today, I just wanted to acknowledge that we have a special visit from our provincial minister today, and that is kind of time sensitive, and we have time allotted for that. So probably within a half hour or so, we're going to recess and then come back. I think that it's appropriate to maybe assign an hour to that meeting. So for those of you watching live, won't make that much of a difference for those who are watching this later. Our intention is to come back at 11 a.m. at the latest, I hope. Okay. Councillors, we have the proposed agenda in front of us today. Are there any additions or corrections that anyone would like to make prior to starting? Okay. I just have one note for clarity here, and it just has to relate to semantics, I guess. Sometimes on TV and in council meetings and even in our agenda today, the JRCC is sometimes referred to as the Joint Recovery Coordination Center, and sometimes it's referred to as the Jasper Recovery Coordination Center. I know it's a minor detail, but I just wanted to know what is the official thing that we should be using for clarity.
Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor Demota. It is the Joint Recovery Coordination Center, reflecting the fact that it is a sort of a unified command approach between Parks Canada and the municipality sharing leadership of that organization. So it is actually joint leadership of the recovery efforts.
All right. Okay. And sometimes it's interchangeable, and that's it has been interchanged, and that's understandable. So I think later on at the end of our document is referred to as Jasper, but the intention there is joint. So having said that, may I have approval of the agenda if there are no additions or, okay. Councillor Keller-Empey, all in favor? None are opposed, that's carried. Okay. We're at agenda item number 3. Oh, did I actually call to order? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Like I said, before we started recording, I am going to make mistakes today, so I am going to rely on my teammates to help us get through this today. Agenda item 3, approval of the minutes. We have the regular meeting minutes of October 15th in front of us. Does anybody have anything to adjust there? Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. No adjustments, just a business arising question around the activity center update last week. Director Reed had mentioned that we would have an update this week, more solid timelines. I'm just curious if that's still on track, and if that does come out, will it come out on our social media channels and website?
Deputy Mayor Demota for Councillor Hall, I can check in with Director Reed. I know that towards the end of last week, they were meeting again with the contractor, and so I imagine that's where that expectation came from. We are continuing to release the public updates every Friday and posting them to the municipality's website and putting them through our social media. So I would expect that that's where more details.
Okay. Thank you very much, again, I appreciate that, and so do the residents of Jasper.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Hall. Any other items to speak to or corrections, deletions? All right, may I have a motion? The council approved the minutes of the October 15th, 2024 regular council meeting as presented. Councillor Melnick, all in favor? Okay. That motion is carried. And I have the correct agenda in front of me today. I'm hoping so. We've got delegations as agenda item number 4. 4.1, the Jasper Park Chamber of Commerce, Executive Director Paul Butler. You have a verbal communication you'd like to share with us today? Give her a few seconds here to get set up.
Is on?
We go.
Yeah, it's on.
Go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Demota and Council for welcoming me here again today. It's starting to become a familiar place to sit. So the title of my presentation, and I will try to keep it brief, is The Quiet Quarter and Just-in-Time Housing. So the Chamber and all of us in the community are appreciative and grateful for all the hard work that's been done at all levels of government to bring interim housing to our community. Mr. Nixon's announcement yesterday was hugely welcome, and we're thankful to him and Mr. Long and the Premier, the entire government of Alberta team who have and continue to be so supportive of our community in this time of need. And we really appreciate the work being done as we speak within the JRCC to arrange housing for our community. According to a survey quoted by the Tourism Industry Association of Alberta, 20 to 30% of employees in the visitor service sector turn over every year. So let's say 25%. These employees are the drivers of our visitor service economy. And the visitor service economy is Jasper's economy. We are all dependent on visitors for our livelihood. And it represents more than that economy represents more than 3/4 of our tax income, as I think we all know. So what I want to talk about is the importance of housing for that 25% as we navigate the difficult years of recovery ahead of us. I call that group the quiet quarter, because they haven't really been heard from and throughout. They haven't been heard from in the process to develop our interim housing framework. The framework developed through the collaborative and difficult work I spoke of has, I think, perhaps overlooked this sector. It's understandable due to the very transience that defines that constituency of residents and employees. When the fire hit town, they picked up, they left, they filtered out into the province. Many of them will have found jobs elsewhere. Many were various categories of temporary foreign workers. So I know from conversations with Heidi Bellew at the Jasper Employment and Education Center that her office assisted with reclassifying nearly 1,000 foreign workers job profiles so that they could work for other employers, because of course foreign workers are often required to work for the employer that brought them into town. So it's an astonishing statistic. Well over 8,000 residents registered as not refugees, evacuees following the fire. I don't know the exact number. I think it approached 9,000 people, and I've heard a lot of surprise expressed at that. But a big part of that is this constituency, and we've often called those people the shadow population in Jasper. So I don't want to drift into a debate about which residents are more important or whose jobs are more important or who is more or less essential in our town when it comes to housing. But suffice to say that these workers are critical to the functionality of our economy and to the recovery of our town. So we understand, and if we didn't a few weeks ago, we sure do now, that there's not going to be enough housing in Jasper for our needs anytime soon. It's just not going to happen, and it's a terribly sad situation. And I and the Chamber are sad as we all are for anyone who has been unable to find housing in town. So I'm not really here to talk about housing in the respect of it's more important for some people than others, or I'm not here to paint pictures of difficulty and sadness faced by various sorts of people, because there's enough sadness to go around for everyone. As I said, things are sad all over. My point really is that for Jasper to set up for success on the road to recovery, we need to address this category when planning housing. I don't think we need to be talking about a lot of housing, but we need there to be some, and we need there to be some soon. So I appreciate the intent of the government, and the announcement was made yesterday and was really welcome, that The goal is to make the interim housing we're gonna see happen over the next months in Jasper, part of the permanent housing inventory of Jasper, and that is such a good thing. It's hard to overstate. I look forward to a future that I never thought I would see in my life, where maybe this sort of quiet quarter of essential worker in Jasper will no longer be dependent on their on housing provided by their own employer, because that can become almost a form of indenturage. And we do it because it's the only way we can do it. And we all know that, whether we're there, whether we are businesses, it's just how we've got it done over all these years, but it is not inherently healthy. So I'm really excited about that. But in the meantime, I feel like we're in real trouble. So I have talked with dozens and dozens of businesses in town, mostly the smallest ones. Some are burned out altogether, some are open tentatively, some not at all. And the single most pressing problem that they are expressing to me, like, Paul, go out and help us to get this done, is where's the housing I'm gonna need for this winter, just to ramp my operation up to the admittedly limited offering that we're gonna be able to provide this winter. As we all know, some hotel rooms are still going to be occupied by residents going at least into the first part of the winter. We can't fix that. But my real concern is twofold. It's the timing, when the available modular housing is going to start to come into place, and I know that is expected to begin happening sometime in January, but beyond that, it is who will be addressed by that. So we need, in my opinion, and as I said, I've talked to many people about it, we need some near-term, on the ground, basic dormitory style accommodation to help get some of these small businesses up and running, because they will not be able to open if they can't find a place to put some people. And we are talking about people that by and large are accepting a pretty basic accommodation, pretty basic dormitory type of accommodation. So in the world of business, if you're managing inventory, this would be called just-in-time inventory management. So it's the idea that you bring on inventory when you need it, you get it out the door, you do whatever it is you do with your inventory, sell it, obviously, in that analogy. And then when you don't need it anymore, it's gone. And I think we need a little bit of that kind of housing to address this problem. It doesn't make sense that the kind of housing we're talking about here should become part of the permanent inventory of housing in Jasper. It's not anyone's idea of the ideal living solution, but it's acceptable to help for the time being, and it's better than what we have, which is nothing for those folks. So in conversations over the past several weeks about this new fire-provoked housing crisis, I'm going to say I've been concerned about the tone of sentiment that I've been hearing when we're talking about this kind of housing, and that is that somehow business should be able to solve this problem for themselves, because in Jasper, business solves that problem for themselves by building and paying for employee housing. But I want to talk a little bit about why that's going to work now. So most of the housing that I'm talking about would replace temporarily housing owned and funded and supplied by businesses for their employees, and that's how we do it in Jasper. And I would say that housing was there, but a lot of it is burned down. And the housing was insured, and those businesses, those owners will rebuild that housing and replace it, and they will bring themselves back to the point where they can provide housing for their employees. But no business insurance is going to cover the construction of temporary housing for residents while they're also going to pay to rebuild the housing. So that gap in time and in quantity of residents is real, and it is an uninsurable loss. There's no insurance that anyone can tap into that is going to help do that. So, we talk to businesses who have even quite robust business interruption insurance, but it's not helping them with that. So they can get their store up and running, and they can do everything they need to do, or their restaurant or whatever it is, but now I can't hire people because I have no place for them to live. And these are small businesses that I'm talking about. There are no major players in this realm that I'm talking about. To be honest, the major players have either largely been unaffected in some cases, or they have space where they can develop their own program, and I'm seeing that happening. And then some of them have been successful in just sort of finding bits of housing around our community. And that's good that they have done that, but we're in it's a zero-sum game, it's a sub-zero-sum game. Where they found housing, of course, is coming at the expense of others. So what I'm coming here today for is to advocate that we need to find a way to dedicate some of the resources that the government of Alberta has generously provided to put this kind of housing on the ground and to do it soon and in a temporary fashion. So I want to draw a couple of parallels that we know in the community. This quiet quarter that I'm talking about, the shadow population, we all know it's there, we recognize it, and we're all aware of it. And how do I know that? Well, for one thing, we have community dinners. How did community dinners start? Because we were really worried in one snowless winter about all these young people in our community that were practically destitute. So we started community dinners. So how else do I know that our government, municipal government, is aware? Well, it's the Cannot Affordable Housing Project that I was really concerned about. I wish we had already built that, except if we had, it would have been down. So I'm talking about the project that the Jasper Community Housing Corporation is working hard at getting built next to what used to be Petrochem. About 40 units, could translate into about 120 beds, depending on how that rolls out. So that housing, as I understand it, and I was involved in the early stages of that myself when I was on council, that is intended to address this largely interim, largely seasonal and turning over population that is so critical to making our community run. So maybe we wouldn't be needing to have this conversation if we already had that, but it's that kind of housing. And it's also addressed the problem of why this really only makes sense to be temporary housing. Because we're not going to need it for a long time. We're probably not even going to need this housing for 5 years, maybe 2, 3, maybe up to 4 years. And then with all the other housing that I'm seeing is going to come online, including the rebuild of employee housing, it'll need to go away. So it doesn't make sense to invest in permanent long-term housing in this case. It makes sense to invest in some short-term housing, and it's very expensive to put on the ground, and that's where the help is needed. None of the individual business players that need this help are in a position to fund this on an upfront basis themselves. The money just isn't there, even the bigger players. This is pretty expensive stuff, like upfront to put down on the ground. So there's no credible business case for it. I've had conversations with people who are saying, well, there probably should be, some kind of an outside company, the companies that put oil field caps on the ground and so on, that could come in and make a business case to do this on a for-profit basis. And it's just not there. The term where we're going to need this is too short. The businesses involved certainly expect to pay on an ongoing basis, as they always have. They will expect to charge their employees rent, or that the employees will pay rent to whoever is operating this. And they will expect to supplement that, I have no doubt, as they always do. Like, no business makes money on their staff accommodation. Personal experience, and that if anyone else tells me that. It's a loss leader, because you got to do it to make your business work, so you'll lose money on the housing. But it's an overall gain. So there's no business case, but there's a business case for the community. If we don't have this, I worry so much about what our startup looks like. Like, we're starting already in a really difficult scenario, a really difficult situation. I would hate to see us starting where the thing that causes our first winter to not be the winter it could be, is that we don't have a place for these frontline employees to sleep. And that is really all we're going to be talking about, is a place for them to sleep. And we need them here in the community. I don't see a scenario in which they could say be bused from Hinton. These young people, you know why they come to Jasper? They don't come to Jasper for minimum wage and 8 hours a day, 40 below. They come to Jasper because they want to experience life in our community. And I don't think we can attract them as we need to provide the winter offering we need for visitation if we're busing them to and fro from Hinton, not to mention the cost, the safety issues, and so on. So my plea to you is find a way. Working, I shouldn't even say find a way. I want to say, let's find a way, working together to put some of this housing on the ground. My office, and I say that with a certain irony, because right now it's me and our office is still not even able to be occupied because of damages. So I'm willing to work in any way I can. I have done a certain amount of work in reaching out to businesses, and I've assembled sort of a little bit of a survey that leads me to think that the kind of quantity I've talked about here, the kind of quantity that aligns with that cannot afford a housing project, is the amount that we could reasonably be looking at that could really make a difference. So it isn't even a very big piece. And financially, I don't think it's going to be a very big piece relative to the dozens of millions of dollars that we are going to be spending the government's money on this housing. And I'm willing to work in any way I can, but I think we need the power of the municipal organization to help convene, to help bring these people together, because as I said, they are small businesses. The people I've talked to are already working, who knows how many hours a day, just trying to figure out how to get things up and running, or they're not even back in town yet. So there's no way I see that these various businesses can pull themselves together, convene themselves, put money on the table, because they will have to, and make this happen. We need the help of the municipal organization. We need to see this problem not as an industry problem, but we need to see it as a community problem. And I think if we do, then we can make this happen and contribute to putting our best foot forward for the coming winter. So thank you very much. That is all I wanted to share with you today. And I am here for questions if there are any.
Thank you very much for your presentation and insightful delivery, Mr. Butler. Lots of things to think about, and I appreciate some of the knowledge that we received today. Councillor, do you have any questions for Mr. Butler or the Jasper Park Chamber? Councillor Gillen.
Not so much a question, Deputy Mayor DeMotta, but thank you, Mr. Butler, for your presentation. It is scary to realize that we've already lost 1,000 workers that now open visas and have left our community. This is just not a problem for this winter, it's going to be a bigger problem coming into next summer. So I think it is important that we advocate on behalf of the business community, our shadow population, that actually makes our community work. Because they're the people that are on the ground, they're the people that run the small businesses that we need for our economy. So I really thank you for your presentation, and I take this quite seriously, and I think we need to advocate for the government to get some dollars in order to get the economy going for our community for this winter and for our upcoming summer. Many people are placed in homes and people have opened up their homes, but they're only there till April. So we're gonna have a much bigger problem come April if we don't have some accommodations in place for the rafters, for the guides, for the servers. We won't have businesses open. That would not be good for our economy.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gillen. Councillor Waxer.
Hey, thank you, and through you, Deputy Mayor DeMotta, I just wanted to make the comment that I very much agree that this particular population is never heard from, and I really appreciate that you're advocating for them as well as for the businesses, that it's really critical that we are aware that this population is always here and it's just an ever-changing peoplescape. And so I appreciate your presentation very much. Thank you.
I don't think I've heard that term before, ever changing peoplescape. Councillor Butler. I knew I was gonna slip up, I was trying very hard not to.
No, that's fine.
Mr. Butler.
It wasn't a question per se, but I have this to offer. Hindsight is 20/20, and next time we have to do this, you know, I don't want that to be the case. I think when thinking about the housing surveys and the housing applications that were done, I will bet that every business would be reaching out to its, albeit former employers, and say, make sure you fill that out. But again, the shadow population, they just sort of go away. Some of them honestly might not have realized that they were residents, because they'd probably been in town for 2 months when the fire happened. So it's sure no one's fault that I don't think that population's been captured by that process. It's just the way it went and the way it goes when something like what happens in a town like ours.
Thank you, appreciate that. I'm gonna go with Councillor Wilson and Councillor Hall.
Thank you for that, Mr. Butler, and 100% agree. We do have to be looking after this wide population. And we will keep lobbying wherever we can to provide housing for this group. But what concerns me is the camp style housing, which I think you're alluding to. I don't know the pricing, but I've heard Mr. Nixon suggest yesterday that camp style housing is quite pricey, and I think you might have done some homework there, but he quoted something upwards of 85 to 95,000 per person per month, which is like astronomical. You know, that was just from the press release. So it is financially massive. I think when we're talking about the term, you did talk about short term, but I don't believe short term is like, it's not just the winter. I think this is probably a 2-year term in my mind, right? And so those numbers add up pretty quickly. I can't, suggest that is the price, but I did hear that yesterday during the press release. And so 100% we'll keep advocating for this group and try to find those solutions. But and thank you for coming to us with it. But definitely concerned about that camp style maybe not being an option, right? But
All right, I do recall that you said you didn't want to enter into debate. However,
Only
no,
to
valid
clarify,
point.
if I could. And,
Yes, sir.
Councillor Wilson made the point that we would need this for more than just the winter, and absolutely. I'm focused on seeing if we can get something done for the winter on the, I think, well-founded assumption that whatever we can get on the ground for the winter will be needed for the subsequent summer. And I think the minimum that we are likely to be talking about needing this kind of housing would be a couple of years, maybe up to 4. I am concerned about those costs that you're mentioning. I'm not pretending this would be easy.
Yeah.
All right. For those that were a little late arriving in the gallery today, I did mention at the beginning of the meeting that we are expecting a visit from the minister. So once that happens, we will be breaking for at least till 11 o'clock. So that I don't think has happened yet. So when that does come, I'm just warning people to break. I'm gonna go to Councillor Hall and then to Councillor Bell. Go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Butler, for coming again today and raising this very important challenge we have in our community. And I also wanted to thank you for acknowledging Heidi Ballou at the Employment Center. She did amazing work, and there was actually a write-up around her heroism, like calling them Jasper local. You kind of answered my question that I was writing down as you were speaking around Minister Nixon yesterday spoke to the uniqueness of our community. We're visitor economy, we're isolated. It's not as easy as just setting up a camp in the land that we have around us. And I was thinking why, Hinton might be a better option, but I do agree with you. These seasonal workers don't come to live in Hinton, they come to live in last week's meeting update with Director Park around the parcel van that's across the highway. Which to me sounded like it might be more for that style of single people, staff housing, 30-day wait from parks, which I think is a little bit, you know, when these meetings come to us so quickly, it's hard to wrap your head around things, but I personally feel that's a bit unacceptable and should just be put through. In the meantime, is there any way that we could house some of these seasonal staff in hotels until that happens or until we have more? I understand that many are visitors there, but without seasonal staff, we won't have visitors. I'm just curious if that's been looked at. My question actually, I do have an actual question, is how many beds do you think are needed for the winter?
Thanks very much, and I'll answer the question to the best of my ability. So I, through social media channels and the Chamber's email facilities, canvass businesses to respond and let me know what their near-term staff accommodation needs were. And I can't say that I have the resources to do a very formalized survey. But I heard from businesses who need anything from 1 to 30 spaces. And that's where I have come up with the number that we might be looking at something a little over 100, 120. I mean, we could fill double that. I know we would, but I am also very much wanting to talk in reasonable terms. It would be a real mistake to build more than we needed. I counted on my count about 90. And I know I didn't reach everyone, so I'm sort of incrementing that a little bit and coming out and that I think we're in maybe that 100 plus 120 range. That would be a good amount to build. We'd have to do some more work in connecting more thoroughly with some of these people to suss out the need a little more succinctly.
I just like, again, I do understand that we do need our hotels and our accommodation for visitors. I just wonder if it could be a shorter solution for until we get this modular apartments or whatever is coming our way.
Thank you, and I don't know. I have not myself through my office looked into that. I know that the JRCC has been communicating with hotels, and so I hate to wade into that because I just don't know. But a fair and good question. I just don't have an answer.
And again, I appreciate you coming, and I do. I agree. This is a part of our community that needs to be advocated for. Without them, we don't have what we're here for.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Nana. Close off with you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Demota, and thank you, Mr. Butler. I'm going to try to be concise. The councilperson definitely brought up a point that was brought up yesterday regarding the cost of a camp style accommodation, but that is probably costs all in for 2 or 3 meals a day, full recreation facility, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. From my understanding, what Mr. Butler is suggesting is that a 24, I'll for argument's sake, 24 to 36 month period of time where a camp style accommodation could come in, where the cost of the daily rental over time could be absorbed by the individuals. The real cost of having that happen is the cost of transporting that accommodation here, setting it up, and then 24 and 36 months later, getting it out of the community. Those are the costs that cannot be covered by small business. An employee is going to pay rent, and they'll pay, and I believe that there is some work that's been done. We need to basically double check and verify that the work that's been done is accurate. But small business, rental of these type of accommodations could be handled like it used to be handled when employees rented in the community. So I think this is a really, really good opportunity for us to do something in the short term to help the businesses through the winter. And like I say, I really appreciate the chamber coming forward with this, because it is, as Paul said, we need it now. It's just in time for winter, it's just in time for a ski season. And if we want to pull off a good ski season, we need to have employees here.
Thank you, Councillor Melnick. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? All right, I appreciate that, and again, I really appreciate your presentation today and the information that you brought forward. I know that the Jasper Municipal Housing Corporation Board's meeting this week, obviously going to be a topic of discussion, so I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Councillor Melnick?
Could I make a motion to accept Mr. Butler's verbal presentation for information? As I think we need to acknowledge this critical role of housing in our community.
I agree. We have a motion on the floor. Everybody understand the motion? Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Been recorded, okay? Okay, great. Thank you very much. So that brings us to agenda item number 5, and that is correspondence. I don't have any direct correspondence in front of us today. CEO Given, do you have anything? Okay, thank you very much. Having no correspondence to review today, that brings us to new business. I think we have some time to review the item 6.1, the traffic safety bylaw considerations. Administration. Mr. Given, could we start off with this? Okay.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor, I think we can hop into the agenda items and try to conclude as many as possible before the minister arrives.
Okay, so we have an attachment with regards to the traffic safety bylaw considerations. Should I ask you to lead off on that?
Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor Demota. Director John is going to handle this report. It comes as a request from council, and I'll hand it over to her.
Good morning, Deputy Mayor Demota and council. This report comes after a question from Mayor Ireland and a motion that was passed on September 3rd about the provisions of the traffic safety bylaw that address the placement of objects obstructing the sidewalk, as well as snow and ice removal from sidewalks in front of residents and businesses' properties. And recognizing that after the wildfire, especially in those properties where people can't live in, that requirement might be a bit difficult to meet this winter. So that's specifically for snow and ice removal. And as far as objects obstructing the sidewalk, that's kind of more of a permitting item. So whenever people are looking at demolition or reconstruction, there might be some requirements there. So the recommendation that is before council is that council direct administration to adjust enforcement service levels on sidewalks in front of properties affected by the wildfire, and that council direct administration to return to an upcoming meeting with alternate service level approaches to address snow and ice removals on sidewalks in front of properties affected by the wildfire. So technically, and the point Mayor Ireland was raising was that we might need an amendment to that bylaw in order to remove the requirement for snow and ice removal. And administratively, in the context of recovery, we feel like a service level directive, so just tell us what you want, essentially, is probably good enough for the winter. The legislative process of amending a bylaw, you can only amend a bylaw by a bylaw, so it would require 3 readings. And then in the spring, we would have to revert to bring those clauses back. So we're suggesting you can just direct us to adjust the enforcement service levels on sidewalks in front of properties affected. And that would cover it in terms of the bylaw enforcement service. And essentially where we're at with the plan for removal of snow and ice, the operations department is working on something, and we will get together as the traffic advisory committee to review what that looks like. So if there's a change in service level there, that would have some financial impacts that would come to, as a report to council. Interim Director Mans would be presenting that likely. And so really no decision is asked today, only to tell us to adjust the service levels to whatever the traffic advisory committee and the operations department comes up with. So that is in regards to snow and ice. And then as far as obstructing the sidewalk for various purposes, the approach we've taken with the bylaw enforcement service is very much to work with people and residents and businesses to meet their needs. And as long as there's no public safety hazard, we're quite lenient on things. We have started to resume more of a normal level of enforcement, but we're still very much in the mindset of supporting people through recovery. And so as far as blocking sidewalks for construction or other matters, we are working closely with the Urban Design and Standards Department. So our director, Beth Sanders, and her team, and making sure that any documentation that is required for bylaw, just to be aware of what's happening and keep an eye on the safety items. We're making sure that those documents are all being provided at once, and it's easy for residents to know and understand what they're supposed to be doing. So streamlining the permitting process is what we're doing there. So we're also not seeking an amendment to the bylaw in that sense. So essentially addressing the legislative aspect today and giving us direction for the bylaw enforcement service, but more to come on the actual plan for snow and ice removal at an upcoming meeting. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for that presentation and information. Councillors, do we have questions? Go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
Well, tell us what you want. I would suggest that you're gonna tell us, I would request that you tell us what you think. And I think it sounds like that's gonna come to us regarding snow and ice removal. In my mind, I just was, I definitely, support, leniency on snow and ice on sidewalks, although, maybe pick two commuter area or lanes or streets through from say the trailer park and unaffected areas on the west end, such as Tonkin or Turret all the way through, or Patricia or Kiki, whatever we think sees more pedestrian or bike traffic, and just ensure that I think the municipality could sweep one side of the sidewalk on one street, and just to keep those pedestrian walkways clear through the winter.
Deputy Mayor Demoda, I'll speak to that because we're sort of trending into the operations and utilities area. So that's exactly what Director Nadon was referencing, and in the report we see a second recommendation that Council Director Administration to return to an upcoming meeting of alternate service level approaches to address snow and ice removal on sidewalks in front of properties affected by the wildfire. It's exactly that discussion that you're raising, Councillor Wilson, of our operations and utilities department has already identified that. They're looking at options, looking at costs of different options, and we'd like to be able to come back to you with some recommendations on that. But for the sort of immediate term, there's this question that was raised before about what our bylaw says that this is required by the leaseholder. Director Nadon's report today is to say, okay, well, let's just clarify that council has given us an administrative direction to not enforce that in the same way as we might have in the past, in respect of the wildfire. And, we're sort of putting that formal recommendation to get it on the motion action list. The council has asked us to come back with an alternate service delivery model that would probably necessitate the municipality adding additional resources to be able to do exactly what you're talking about, identify priority routes and have the municipality do cleaning up the streets.
Thank you very much, Mr. Given. Councillor Wilson, you're satisfied with that information from Councillor Hall?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Demoda. My question is kind of around this, but with increasing opportunities for active transportation, is there a plan to, or I don't even know if there are just lights not there, but some of the lights turned on in the red zones, I know it's quite dark, that I think people are commuting and walking in this winter time, it gets dark very early, just that outer Cabin Creek loop, it's really dark, and that's the area I'm living in. I had a few residents ask me if that is, I don't even know if there's lights left there.
Deputy Mayor Demoda, I'll speak from personal experience, being on that end of town. So my recollection is that there are some of the streetlights back up. There was a period of time where there were none in that area. That has since been improved. There may be limited pockets where there are no streetlights because the actual light structure itself was damaged. But there are many of them that look a little bit unusual due to melted glass and that kind of thing, that are still operating. So I'm not aware of areas where, so there's an extended period, but that's something we can have a look at and just quantify to be certain.
Thank you very much for the question. Councillor Hall, anyone else have any questions? Is anyone interested in making a motion, regarding the primary recommendation and the second part of that as well, combined? Okay. Councillor Morathi?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Demota. The council directed administration to adjust enforcement service levels on sidewalks and front properties affected by the wildfire, and that council directed administration to return to an upcoming meeting with alternative service level approaches to address snow and ice removal on sidewalks and front properties affected by the wildfire.
Thank you. Councillors, any debate on the motion? Any further clarity needed? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Not opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Evan, and thank you, Ms. Nadal, for bringing that forward to us today, and look forward to some of the information that comes back to us and recommendations. Shall we move into agenda item 6.2?
Deputy Mayor Demota, subject to council's level of comfort, and my suggestion might be that we could do this one. I imagine there'll be some discussion at 8, and it's probably the one where there's more variety. The 6.3, the JRCC such update is really an information item, and so that one could be dealt with. I'm just trying to think about how we can proceed through the agenda without getting stuck in something that might be a lengthier debate. So I don't know if
Preach it to the chair.
so just to share, maybe you'd want to move on to 6.3, potentially 6.4, while we await the minister's arrival.
All right, let's go with 6.3. There might be some contentious things to talk about in 6.2. So with a general nod from council, we're okay to move forward on that. Okay. So if we can put administration on the spot for the joint recovery coordination center update, that would be great. And we have Director Clark with us today. We'll give you a few seconds to get loaded up here, and thanks for being available on the spot there. And I believe we're ready to go. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Always happy to be available for council. Very little to update on today. So within the agenda package, you see the org chart, which was a request from council to give a sense of how the JRCC is configured. And essentially what it shows is that balance between the contribution between Parks Canada and the municipality of Jasper. I apologize, we intended to have the weekly reporting that we had shown you previously, included in the agenda as well. We're still navigating the growing pains of the JRCC and the various approval processes that need to be gone through to be able to make information public. And we weren't able to get that complete last week in time to get that submitted to the council agenda. There is, of course, information to our social media and on the website. And we are going to try to continue to refine that process to get you those timely updates. So that is the only information I have for you today. I'm happy to answer any other general recovery related questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Before I ask information or requests from council to go ahead, I just wanted to say thank you very much for all the hard work your team is doing behind the scenes. Not a lot of people see it. There's a little progress in some areas visibly, but I know that you're moving mountains behind the scenes. And just listening to Minister Nixon's updates yesterday and his delivery and him fielding questions, I can tell that he's been working very hard with you and is very well read in the situation, is up to date. So I'd like to thank you and your team for working hard with other layers of government to keep them informed and help expedite the processes. I know it's not very visible, but your work is very much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right, Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Demoda, and I also want to congratulate you, Director Park, for the hard work your team has done. And I know that yesterday's announcement probably came with months and months of work. And it's a huge win for our community as we recover. I do have a question for you, and I did bring this up when Mr. Butler spoke earlier around that 30-day period waiting for the parcel line across the highway. Is there any way we can advocate to get rid of that? Like, it's important, and I mean, Parks has said no barriers, and here it seems like it's a barrier.
So from our perspective, it's actually not a barrier. It is a public notice requirement. We are actioning the servicing on the other sites first, and with the contract capacity that we have in place, we can only mobilize to a certain number of sites at one time. So the full contractor capacity that we have available to us is moving on the site servicing on the northeast side of the municipality and on the southwest side of the municipality. We anticipate that by the time we complete that servicing and we have contract capacity available to us again, that we will then be able to move directly to the site across the highway. And so we do not anticipate any delay as a result of this.
That's a great clarification, and thank you very much.
I appreciate that too, because initially I thought it was the process that was holding it up. No, that's really good. I'm glad to hear that we're making movement. I believe it was Councillor Keller being next, so, okay, so it's Councillor Wilson and Councillor.
Okay, thank you. Director Park, you might not know the history behind it, that maybe Mr. Don can assist as well. And almost just maybe just like, let's take this back and get some answers for it. But I've had some concern through residents about commercial use of public space and the ongoing commercial use of public space. I understand that like during the state of local emergency, certain areas were allotted to certain contractors for the immediate recovery. Although we've now entered into like a long-term recovery and the use of like, well, I don't want to just say the one, but I guess our recreational parking area has been kind of commandeered by a large fine contractor, which is great, but they're using it. Although it is commercial use of public space, they are a private contractor, and so this question arises: are we being compensated for it? Is that opportunity available for other contractors in town or contractors coming up from out of town? And how are we managing that? I know you weren't here probably when that was allocated to them, but you know, moving forward, how are we going to deal with the equity in businesses there?
Very happy to answer that question. So indeed, the use of that site was assigned under the powers during the emergency phase. And that was because the contractor, Ellis Dawn, was a critical part of the initial response. We are now in the first recovery phase, and it is reasonable for us to be reconsidering those arrangements. Essentially what we are looking at, so we recognize that there are a number of commercial operators that may have a need for space. And as a municipality, we have an interest in facilitating their spatial needs in order to help them also contribute to the recovery. So what we're doing is looking at this from two perspectives. There is, of course, the use of commercial space bylaw that the municipality has already in place. Unfortunately, its wording does not really cover this type of scenario. It's more about patios and festivals, that type of uses. It does, however, give the CAO broad discretion for other areas where it may be relevant. So the approach we're going to take is to see what other requests come forward, do our best to facilitate the requests that come in order to level the playing field so that one contractor is not getting an unfair advantage over another by virtue of being able to use that space, and to be able to accommodate as many of those requests as possible. If we are seeing that it is not possible to accommodate all of the requests, then we would look at potentially imposing a fee through the existing bylaw in order to level that playing field. We do have to add, of course, that any fees that we apply will then eventually show up in homeowners' cost for the debris removal, for example, because those costs will be passed on from the contractors for the work that they are doing in town. So there's no cost-free solution to this, which is why the first approach that we are taking is to try to accommodate all the requests that may come in to the best of our ability.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Wilson, do you have a follow-up?
No, thank you for that, and I appreciate the answer.
Okay, Pretty quick, Councillor Malik, and it's not that these questions are important and we can come back, but the minister has arrived and I don't want to keep them waiting.
It's a very quick question. In the organizational chart, I don't see how or where the Recovery Advisory Committee integrates into the organizational chart. And this will be, I'm sure, a quick answer.
So the answer is because they do not integrate into, they sit above. So this is the organization of the essentially staff or the administrative people that work within the JRCC. The advisory committee will sit above and we will have, you know, regular meetings and a platform to engage with them, but they are not integrated with them.
Thank you for that. I think it's important that the community know why the advisory committee is there and recognize its relevance in the organizational chart.
And a very astute observation, and I appreciate the answer on that. Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Park. Is there any other further questions or need for clarity on anything? Okay, we have a motion to accept the presentation, okay? From Council Malik, all in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. We've come to the point in the meeting where we're going to take a recess. I almost said brief recess, but let's say we'll return at 11:15, maybe 45 minutes, an hour. Council, an hour? Okay, so we'll return back here at 11:30 and work through the rest of the agenda. It's a full one today. I hope you brought your lunches. Thank you, and for those watching, if you're that keen and you want to come back, we're meeting at 11:30. Thank you. I hope you can edit this part of the video. Okay. That's good. Thank you, everyone. We're back from recess now. It is 12:08, live time. Appreciate your patience. Very good conversation with the minister and his colleagues today. I think we left off at agenda item 6.3, and having done the conversation on the traffic safety bylaw considerations, we skipped over 6.2. This council had a desire to move on to that topic of discussion now. If we finish with the JRCC recovery update.
Maybe go to 6.4 first, and just, it shouldn't be a long topic, and
All right, so I have a suggestion from Councillor Keller-Ecke that we address 6.4 to accommodate some of the visitors here in gallery and keep that on. I think that's a good point. And then maybe break for lunch and come back and deal with some more of the contentious stuff after. We don't want to keep everybody waiting, and well, there's some contentious wording in there. All right, so friendly nod from council, we can go ahead to 6.4, and so we'll move that, and you were going to give us the verbal on that?
yeah.
Thank you very much.
So last week, I have been contacted by the Jasper Senior Society and received another email saying that they have the space till the end of December. I personally think that we need to be able to give the seniors some stability. As we all know, during this terrible time of wildfire and coming back, our most vulnerable are our children and our seniors. And I think we need to take that space off the agenda for office spaces. I think we need to allow the seniors enjoy their space till we can find a suitable space turnkey for the seniors. One of my suggestions is that we as council will advocate to the Alberta government when they build the new Pine Grove building, that they could also build an independent senior space there that all our seniors in our community could use. And at that time, then administration could look at that site. Now, I know that, it's difficult, we have very little office space, but my suggestion is that administration look at other areas, maybe even the quorum room here for office space, and maybe we have to work with the seniors and ask them on Tuesdays that we do our meeting there. But it's open for conversation, council, before I make motion.
No, I think it's good, and I don't want to get too far into operations, because that's not our realm, and I wasn't a big fan of seeing a December 31st agreement, because midwinter, just after the holidays, right before the new year, it didn't sit right with me, and I think we need to have a proper conversation, and some consideration there. So, not to condemn anybody, or accuse anybody of wrongdoing or misstepping. I think that, we need to be sensitive around these matters at time of year and all that. And, look for other solutions, and I think working collaboratively with people, I think that's an important step. And I think there's gonna be some really positive and good solutions down the road, but, right now, I'm not really in favor of displacing people, especially the ones that are already displaced. So, right, and, one of the members of the gallery earlier mentioned that, we're not speaking, some of us aren't speaking well enough into the microphone, so, can you hear us better now? Okay, I apologize, thank you. All right, any other comments, or considerations, thoughts that councillors might have? Go ahead, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Demota, and along the lines of Councillor Keller-Amby, I would agree with moving forward, any sort of date. We are very close to reopening the activity center with additional access because of the elevator and changes throughout the area. I would think that, the idea of extending for a couple more years, an opportunity for the seniors to be in the space that they are would be reasonable. It'll give us a chance to get the activity center, see how that space works with the changes that we made, both at the curling lounge and in the area below. I think that it's going to be interesting to see how well we utilize that space, and may need to reevaluate what needs there are in the community overall at that time. So I'd be in favor of not looking at the senior space for at least a couple of years. And I would, to your point, maybe not December 31st, but maybe we make it sometime in the first quarter of, say, 2028.
Oh, I see some campaign promises coming down. I can see it now, hey, let's keep it relevant. Anyway, just adding some levity to it, because it is important to have these discussions and to make sure that voices are being heard, and that, there's some understanding of collaboration and the need and want for that too. Councillors, any other comments, observations, recommendations?
Fair to make motion?
All right, go ahead, Councillor Kellerman.
I make a motion that council direct administration to enter into a lease with the Jasper Senior Society and take that space off the slate as future office space. And that council will advocate to the Alberta government for more building Pine Grove to see if we can consider building a senior center there also.
All right,
I see that there was maybe a bit of a question about the formatting of the motion. The one thing I would offer is that you're making a suggestion of entering into the lease. You're not suggesting any particular term.
that's partially where I was going, and then, there might be consideration of future office space, so I just want some clarification on that we're not considering shutting that down completely, so.
We are till 2028, so we'll build back up.
All right, okay, you know, I, go ahead, sorry, and then,
But my understanding, there's a yearly lease now, am I correct, Mr. Gibbon?
Yes.
So, I understand that there had been previously an annual lease in place. The municipality had wanted to provide seniors some certainty, because I think we've been sort of going month to month over the last little while. And the intention of, giving them certainty at least till the end of this year was to take more certainty than they had previously. And that would have allowed the activity center renovation to complete when we could have considered some other options. And the council wants to take a different direction. That's absolutely fine. I think what would be ideal in terms of recording motion would be the council specific.
all right.
So
So,
change my motion then, I'll make a motion that council director administration, to, enter into a lease with the Jasper Senior Society, that they maintain their space, with unlimited, and we as council will advocate, to the Alberta government that maybe when we build Pine Grove, that we may build a future senior center, and then at that time, we would look at that space.
okay. If I may, that's a pretty wordy
Okay.
motion, and I'm wondering if you want to take some time to clean that up a little bit. I do have some questions on that. We're not yet entering a debate, but I'll welcome it while we're working on that. Do you have any comments or questions, the rest of the council? Part of my concern is handcuffing the next council, or, you know, or not handcuffing them, that's probably not the appropriate word, but just tying them to something that might not be manageable down the road. And I think that working collaboratively might give us opportunities to find other solutions. And I know that administration's strapped for space, and we have a huge road ahead of us, comes down and to what we need to do in for the near future of Jasper. I don't want to dismiss anybody right now, but I think that long-term solution and having an open-ended lease might not be that productive for everyone concerned, because you know, you hear me talk about the 3 filters, and I don't want to go on too much about it, but it's like, is this good for the community as a whole? What are the costs? And the costs also have social ramifications, and, you know, what are the costs of not moving forward on other initiatives? And is it the right thing to do? So for me, this checks off a lot of the boxes when it comes to, you know, keeping people in their place right now, and then working towards some more collaborative solutions. So that's kind of where I'm sitting, and I don't really want to tie a future council and administration into something that may not be workable for everybody. Right, and that's when I'm looking at it from a holistic point of view. Councillor Waxer, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think one of my comments is that worry about including the element of Pine Grove in the motion, because I don't think even a formal discussion has occurred with the senior society, that would be an appropriate place. So I would recommend that my preference would be that we just had a motion that talked about, at this point, the extension of the lease for a longer period of time, rather than the broader discussion of where we can.
I'm quite happy to take councillor Rice's, and I can change my motion.
Sure.
And I'm gonna be honest, you know, when the seniors center came in 1976 to the activity center, so did the daycare. And the daycare is so important. And we take care of our youth, we take care of our children. I think we need to take care of our seniors. So for the future council who runs for council, I seriously hope people running will want to take care of our seniors. They're our most vulnerable, as with our children. And I learned that through COVID. I didn't have kids myself, and I was one of those people that cut the budget for daycare. And I regret that. And I really want to stand up for our seniors. We're all going to be there one day. It's just not about our current seniors, it's about our future seniors. And more and more of us, as the baby boomers age, we are all going to be seniors. And for a future council coming in, I would like to think that we set the pace that this is very important. It was very important to this council. And that is why we made the decision that we would leave them in that space till municipality can find an alternative space for them that equals to what they have today.
Sounds good. I agree. You know, the daycare, we had other uses in different spaces where there's offices now, and through collaboration and some work with those groups, we were able to make bigger and better things happen, correct? Councillor Waxer was in administration at the time, went through quite a few of those changes and helped promote that. So I know that there's good solutions out there and that's gonna work for everybody. Before we go forward, I just wanna make sure we have a solid motion. I don't wanna put you on the spot and just so clarify so that the administration knows exactly what we're voting on. Councillor Waxer.
I think, sorry, further to your comment, Councillor Gallagher, we are anticipating across Canada a silver surge of more and more seniors. So one of my thoughts would be not only equal to, but appropriate senior population that we have in the future, that space may in fact be much too small for the needs down the road. So my preference is that we are thinking all the time about what are the needs of a seniors center, and it may be bigger and more than what we currently have.
I do have a question for administration, and if I can, Mr. Gibbon, I just wanted to ask the question right now on just the way agreements, contracts, and leases work with the municipality. Are most of them based on a calendar year, or are there other opportunities where we have agreements that might change in the springtime or in the fall? I'm just looking for other opportunities because those December 31st dates, whatever it is, I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of open-ended leases or agreements. So I was just thinking, is there an opportunity to have a different timeline for yearly or perpetual lease agreements?
Deputy Mayor Demotive, so council certainly is has the ability to define a sort of term that they wish. You finished your comments by saying perpetual. I'm not sure that actually exists. A perpetual lease, I don't think, is something that would stand law. It's certainly not in my experience in municipalities, but if council wanted to define a lease from, beginning date and ending date or blank term, any of those formats would be completely appropriate and would give administration clear direction. I think things like, anything, when we start to talk about leases, it's a contractual arrangement, and a contractual arrangement does need some kind of clearer definition that benefits both parties. So as much definition as council can add, whether it's from October 31st of 2024 to October 31st of 2025, again, that's very specific. If it is a 3-year term, that is also very specific. And so again, administration can work with any of those options, but I think building a lease, which is a contractual arrangement, requires that kind of definition.
Okay. And I'm glad I threw out perpetual out there just for some clarity so people know and understand those terms. One of the things that I wanted to consider is the seasonality. And obviously stalling a little bit here for some clarification. do we want to take a recess and maybe come back after lunch? Or are we ready to go on? I'm just asking, like, I don't want to put any pressure. It's a very important discussion and I don't want to,
Well, basically, we have, it's up to council, but what I'm saying is that we allow our seniors stay in the current space until we can find an alternative space equal to or bigger than what they have now.
so is there an opportunity, maybe, it takes a while for a new council to get up and running, if there's some changeover and stuff, you know, I understand you were aiming first for 2028.
We can put 2028 on it, if we can put a date on it, we can put 2027 on it, but, till we have an alternative space, I don't think we wanna move our seniors.
Right, and there could be some wording in that. Councillor Long.
I think. Okay, let it die. There we go, sorry, guys, I probably let it die. Until there's until there's an alternative space, could be 6 months, 6 years, 10 years, like, I wonder if we could just. Question for a minute, do we normally enter into year leases with external groups? Can we do, like, I think what the administration needs is a solid 18-month lease, 2-year lease, whatever we decide, and I support it, I support
How about
this idea, but
How about 5 years?
I just wonder would a 5-year lease be, a thing that, because then what happens if the suitable space comes up before that?
I remember this being former Councillor Butler's favorite thing to do is forming motions by committee. This is great.
Well, and yeah, this can be a bit of a challenge about sort of forming motions by, because different council members may have different ideas, and this is why you put forward a motion, discuss, debate, hold up or down, amend. I think, there, as long as a lease arrangement had a defined term, I think that can be whatever council would wish. It does constrain by definition future councils. You probably feel, I think administration advice would be that it should be what would be typical in the marketplace, if I can use that sort of term, but again, if council wishes to provide an extended term, do that. At a very basic level, lease is a contractual arrangement, and the contract usually has a start and an end. The challenge becomes when you include in a contract until suitable something is found, because different people, different parties might have different definitions of what's suitable or not. So I think it sounds like council's struggling with two different ideas. One, providing certainty on the use of the current space, and so administration's suggestion would be, council can discuss and debate whatever term the 6 of you feel would be appropriate. And again, you may have different opinion, and that's why you make the motion. The second would be around working with the seniors group and other, interested parties to identify alternative spaces that would meet the current and future need for a seniors center. And I think that those are probably two separate motions. Both of them probably valuable council consideration, but it sounds like they're both a part of the conversation. Tying them together, I think, is where it becomes a challenge. You may want to deal with the first and then deal with the second.
Okay. So if you're ready to make a motion, I'm ready to receive it, and let's hear it.
Okay,
Councillor Keller.
the council direct administration to enter into a 5-year term lease with the Jasper Senior Society for the current space.
Does everybody understand the motion? Is there any debate? Go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
It's not that I don't support the motion, although the term seems maybe a little excessive. It does tie next council in for 3 more years. I would support a 2-year lease, so throughout the rest of our term, and then at least 1 year of the new term, and then and future council has the ability to renegotiate, find a space,
Anyone else? Councillor Hall?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I absolutely support, leaving the seniors in that space. And I anticipate that there may be some opportunity to build a new space in a new building that's built. My concern with the 5 years is that that space is now off the table for municipality if they get out earlier. I'm happy to support this, I truly am. But I wonder if a 2-year lease might make more sense, just in case the building comes quick, there's a space for them, that can be right off the table for the municipality for any reason, I do support leaving them there, I just wonder if 5 years is too much in case a space comes up.
But if a space comes up, within the lease, it could say, until an alternative space come up that's agreeable by both parties, that could be part of the lease for 5 years. Because if we build Pine Grove and suddenly somebody donated a bunch of money and builds a senior center, you'd think our seniors wouldn't want the bigger center, of course they would. You know what I mean, there's nothing tying once a new center comes up and the seniors move there. But I don't want this back on the table 2 years from now where again, we're saying, oh, the seniors need to leave because we have office space, because that is not fair to the mental health of our seniors. It's just not fair. So I'm just trying to keep it fair for all, but I think, you know what I mean, if 5 years from now and Pine Grove or Alpine and a space comes up and there's some money within, we don't know if the United Church, maybe there's some land there, maybe we can get a grant and build a senior center in the future. Why wouldn't the seniors not want to move there?
Do you want to follow up on that?
I do.
Councillor Mallon?
And just for my knowledge, this lease there's no money attached to it, it's not gonna break the lease and the, $1.
Is there any CPI attached to that $1? Okay. Councillor Mallon?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Demota. Hearing some discussion about the length of the term, perhaps a friendly amendment to 4 years would make it,
So we have 2, 3, 4 now.
well, would make it 1 year prior to, as you pointed out, a new council. 5 years puts it right to the new council or skips the next one. And I think maybe 4 years would be the certainty that's being discussed. There's the opportunity for Pine Grove to be reviewed. That may or may not become an opportunity. And I could support the motion, but instead of punting it to 2 councils from now, I think the next council should have an opportunity to review it as things change in the community.
I picked up the gavel because I might start an auction for the extent of the term. And I might start off with 2, 3, 4. Councillor Waxer, do you have anything else to add on that? Okay, so,
I would
before-
accept the friendly amendment from Councillor Melnick. 4 years.
okay. I was gonna give an opportunity to let myself speak before you made that, and reason being just from experience, and I kind of side with Councillor Wilson on this. I think no matter what time we're gonna take, the next council is going to have, like we are right now, lots of obstacles. There's gonna be emergent issues. We don't know a lot of the things that are gonna come up. Having 1 year into their cycle, we'll put them at 2026. I don't think that's enough time to address this. And I'm more comfortable with, the year that we have left here and then another 2 years for council, but that's just my opinion. If you're gonna stick to 4, that's fine. I know that there's at least 2 of us that would prefer 3, but we don't need to have any tiebreakers here or anything. So the motion, if you're sticking to 4, that's the motion. And if I can go to administration before I call it for a vote, do we understand what the motion, do we have a clear motion on the table for you to interpret?
Deputy Mayor Demota, so I'm understanding at this point that Councillor Keller MP has accepted a friendly amendment from Councillor Melnick. So Councillor Keller MP's motion would be that council direct administration enter into a 4-year lease arrangement with the senior society for the use of the current seniors center at the end. Period. So just for clarity, so I'm hearing that Councillor Keller, our MP, has accepted that. That's the motion that's on the floor that would be open for discussion, debate, or motions to amend. If there was any motion that was, sorry, any amendment that was maybe not accepted by the mover as a friendly. That's the motion that would be on the floor.
Okay, and no other word in there about unless other opportunities arise. That's just a given.
Separate motion for that.
All right, so we understand the motion. You ready to call it? All in favor? Opposed? Are you in favor or against? Okay, all right, and for me, it's just, it's not that I don't want people in the space, it's the term, that's all. So I appreciate the conversation. And I look forward to some resolve down the road on this. All right.
Deputy Mayor Demota, there was a second sort of consideration, I think, that I heard from council about direction to administration and work with other parties to identify suitable future options. And certainly there would need to be work put into that, and having clear council direction, if that's what you wish administration to do, would be helpful.
So, I want to go with that.
I'm open, just whoever wants to speak, go ahead, Councillor Waxer.
I would be happy to make that motion. I need a moment, but I think that was an important piece to be discussed. I think I think that a senior center is a vital part of any community, and that I believe that we will be seeing an increased population of seniors, and the senior center that exists at the moment was dreamt up in a period in the 70s. We're now in 2024, and I think that it's quite possible that working with the senior society and with other critical partners, it would be wonderful to envision for our community a vibrant senior center for the future. So with that, I would make a motion that council direct administration to work with the Jasper Senior Society and other partners to develop a plan, to ensure that there is a vibrant seniors center in the community of Jasper. And I'm happy to accept any help on that.
Well, that was good, because I was going to consider waiting either to come back from lunch or another week, because having the decision already been made about the lease, we had time to do that. But I see that our CAO has been meticulously typing away. Are you recording much of what Councillor Waxer? Because I want to hear it read back.
Deputy Mayor, what I think I heard from Councillor Waxer was that council direct administration to work with the Jasper Senior Society and other interested parties to develop a plan for a new seniors center.
Not necessarily a new, but a senior center that will meet the needs of the future senior population.
Superpopulation?
So Deputy Mayor Demota, so if the first part of that was correct, then capturing what the mover, Councillor Waxer put forward, so direct administration work with the Jasper Senior Society and other interested parties to develop a plan for a senior center that will meet future demand.
You good with that? That's what you intended?
Yeah.
Okay. Any debate, questions? Comments? All right, I'm ready to call the question. All in favor? Okay, there's none opposed, that's carried. I do want to say, thank you very much. I really I look forward to these debates, and even when we're doing things on the fly, it challenges us, it makes us better, and, you know, I really enjoy working with all of you. It's great. And I'd like to thank people for being present here today and supporting, the discussion. If there is no further discussion on this, I would like to talk about the recess and also emphasize that I have been trying to move this agenda a little quicker than what you expect from me, and it's not my fault that we're taking time. So when the mayor comes back and he said, what took you guys so long? Was it Rico again? I'm going to say, talk to your fellow colleagues. All right, so having concluded that, how long would council like to take for lunch break and administrative break? You're looking for an hour, 45 minutes? Okay, we're gonna come back at 1:30. Does that feel good? It gives you time to walk your dogs and do stuff? All right. I will call the regular meeting recess. It is 12:42. We will return approximately at 1:30. That's what we're aiming for. Thank you. Welcome back to those viewing. For some, it might have felt like an eternity. For those who are watching this later, it was just a mere matter of minutes, if not seconds. Getting back to the agenda, I'd like to call us back to order. The time is 1:32. We are still under agenda item number 6, new business, and we are going to now that we've completed the other items under 6 so far. We're going back to 6.2, which we moved to a later part of the discussion, and that is council remuneration review and the public input summary. So, Mr. Gibbon, would you like to lead us off with that, please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Demota. So in front of you, you will see 2 items under 6.2. First is the council remuneration post 2025 election report. Just want to acknowledge that that report is the same one that was presented to council previously on September 17th. It's unchanged. At the meeting on the 17th, council directed administration to seek public input. And then to come back to council with a summary of public input. So the report itself and recommendation are unchanged, reflective of what happened September 17th. The new information is here for council is the summary of public input. The municipality utilized our Engage Jasper platform. And I'll speak to that a little bit, but just want to make sure that council and committee are aware that the report is listed from back in September. And maybe I will just highlight what that report was at the time and the reason why we're having this discussion now. First, as council knows, and as those who are watching back in September would also know, the municipality's policies require an outgoing council to discuss and consider the remuneration or pay for an incoming council. And so it's essentially this council's duty to think about what the next council should be following the election. And so the election is coming up very quick. It is in October of 2025. And residents who are interested in running for a seat on council can put their names forward as early as January 1st of 2025. And so it's actually, you know, in terms of that timeline, we're not very far away from people making their decisions about whether they might wish to run for council or not. And so the decision about what council pay will be following that 2025 election is important information to be out in the public sphere so people can take that into account when they're making their decisions about whether they might wish to run or not. So the report from September 17th, administration made a recommendation that council approve some changes to the compensation structure for Jasper Council following the 2025 election. They were based on a number of general principles. One, that remuneration should be fair and reasonable. that the remuneration must not be a barrier to diverse and representative pool of candidates from Jasper residents. And that remuneration must recognize the complexity, responsibilities, and time commitments associated with the role of elected official generally, and even more specifically in the municipality of Jasper, which is unique due to its high degree of intergovernmental relations, our tours of base economy, and obviously, particularly in the next term, wildfire recovery throughout the community. So based on those principles, administration brought forward some broad recommendations. First, to eliminate the per diem system, which is essentially a system that compensates council members for attending specifically defined duties for attendance at committee meetings, for external boards and committees and other meetings. To adjust the, what I'll call CPI only once during the term. Our current practice is to have an annual adjustment to reflect inflation essentially, and apply that to council salaries. The recommendation is to actually move down to only making that adjustment once during the course of a term, so essentially every 2 years. And then also specific to the different roles, to formalize the allowance for the mayor's phone and phone service, recognize the role of mayors being a full-time role, increasing the mayor's annual base salary to the average of Alberta mountain towns, including Jasper's Current, Canmore, Banff, to adopt a no per diem approach, which would together yield an all-encompassing salary of $114,417. On councillors, again, to adopt that no per diem approach, and to consider the averages of the other Alberta mountain towns, to result in an all-encompassing salary of $36,056 per year for the start of the 2025 term. So administration presented those recommendations in September. We utilized our Engage Jasper platform, provided the report that was presented to council on the platform as well, so people could read the same documentation that was presented to council when they were sort of sharing their opinions. And administration has presented both the raw data, and apologies for the very small type. This was the best way to be able to fit an individual respondent's full answers on a page. Otherwise, we would have run to hundreds and hundreds of pages because the comments were lost, not necessarily because there's a high degree of participation. We have summarized all that teeny tiny little print for you in an executive summary, which was also attached today. You'll see in the summary that there were 154 visits to the engagement page. 123 people chose to actually directly participate by leaving comments and making submissions. And of those visitors who participated or visited the page, 23 downloaded the attached council report, which was there for their information. I won't go through all of the executive summary comments. I think the high level thing I would say is that there was a difference of opinion. And that difference of opinion is relatively equally split between those who supported the proposed changes and those who did not. Some respondents recognized, of course, that the position is demanding, requiring a lot of dedication, and they argue that the proposed salary is fair compensation for the commitment involved from our elected officials. Others, frankly, noted and expressed concern that the salary was too high, and Jasper, given Jasper's sort of smaller community size and their perceptions of fiscal constraints on the municipality. So, at a high level, public sentiment was relatively evenly split, nearly 50-50 as you go through and sort of try to categorize the comments. So it doesn't provide council a clear, consensus opinion on behalf of the community. And I think it's important to acknowledge that there were only 123 participants who chose to provide opinion in either case. Administration would fully acknowledge that Jasper residents' minds are absolutely on many different important topics at this time, as the community was coming back from community members were coming back into Jasper following the evacuation, and residents' minds are focused on housing, recovery, and many other issues. And at the same time, as I laid out at the start, this is a duty of this council to consider this at this time. So I want to say to council and certainly to the community, the fact that council is considering this and that administration is putting in its effort is not a reflection of the fact that this is a priority necessarily right now over all those other things that the municipality and council are working on. It is actually a responsibility of administration and council to deal with this issue at this time. And so, Deputy Mayor Demota, I think that's probably all the introductory comments that I would give. Not if it's long-winded for introductory comments. I'm happy to answer any questions. But in essence, council asked for us to gather public input. The public input has been gathered. It's provided here for you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And you know what, jokingly, when we were talking about it earlier, when you told me about the 23 downloads, I said, you could have probably rounded that up to 30, knowing that all of council was read in those. So I hope that isn't included in there out of the respondents. You know, first and foremost, like I appreciate the work behind this, and I understand the timeline, and no matter what we do here and the amount of clarification that you've provided, you know, you can still see that, you know, from the participation and the information that it might be shared out there, whether people are going to our website or just talking amongst themselves. Sometimes there is some misunderstanding of the process, and you know, we're here every week and we're facing the public, and you know, we're held accountable, and we're being as transparent as we can be. You know, we strive for it, but people seem to find things that are mysterious to me and conspiracy-like at times. And we do have those keyboard warriors, and the anonymity of them kind of gives them a little bit more freedom to blast certain people. And you know, it's hard for me not to get defensive about that, because you know, I know how hard everybody's working behind the scenes. And one thing that I do want to say without getting too long-winded is, there are a lot of times we do 10 great things in one day and we feel good about it, and then there's one negative comment that will deflate the whole thing. And you know, I often make sports references, but you know, if you think of playing any game and you're up by 10 goals and you're looking for a shutout, or your score is 10-0, and then someone gets that one goal, you still win the game by a huge margin. And I see a lot of the strides that we're making here, and this is for future consideration for the next council, and we have to tee the people up behind this group, particularly with what they're going to be facing and what we're facing right now. There's a lot of uncertainty, and I'll guarantee you we're always on the clock. Today, even going for lunch, sitting down, and it's no complaint of mine, because we love to talk to our community members. You know, particularly at this time, it's you have to be made approachable, and people are approaching us, and you know, and I commend everybody here for the great comments that I'm getting, and I'm hearing about our group. Some of the smaller stuff online that you know, I consider not that conducive to progress. Take it with a grain of salt, because I think everybody here is doing a great job, so thank you. All right, any comments that you would like to make, or observations, questions? Councillor Hall?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Demota, and I share all of those sentiments, and I think reading through some of the comments and knowing that only 23 downloaded the attachment, it's our job to educate the residents on what we actually do, and we can do a better job of that. One piece that was missing is what we actually made last year, because these base prices are without our per diems. I'm assuming Councillor Melnick did the math like I did. And the difference in the mayor's salary from the last that was proposed is $10,000. Like he, you know, and the difference in council salary would be just under 14,000 divided by 6. That's 2,300 a year. Like we're not that far off with our per diems, and I think that was a big piece that was missing in this report. And I did get that feedback from residents that, yes, it's a huge jump. We're going from, I can't remember what the mayor's wage was, 90,000 to 104. Like it does seem really big, but what he actually took home last year was 105,000 with his meetings, and we all do extra, this is the base price, yeah, I don't sort of small stuff, I get a lot of comments, good ones, and I get the comment, why do you do this if this is what it is, and I'm like, well, I will speak, I'm sure for all of us that we all have a heart of service, and that's why we do what we do. But again, the total proposed increase from this year to next year would be just under 24,000, not the actual 94 it shows. So I think that's a really important point to make, that there was a kind of big chunk missing in this report for residents to actually understand the wages.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hall, and yes, we are here for those very same reasons, and I can't speak for everybody else, but certainly feel that here, Councillor Waxer.
My comment would be that when you talk about a heart of service, I think there are people with a heart of service who are working in lower income jobs who may not be able to afford to sit on a municipal council without reasonable compensation. And so you run the risk of by not compensating mayor and council for the work that they do, in having people that are not having a very flat demographic and not having diversity of people in the sitting at the council table. So I would like to speak to that I think that by offering a fair compensation, you provide the opportunity for those who might not be able to sit at the council table without that.
Thank you, Councillor Waxer. Councillor Hall?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I absolutely agree with Councillor Waxer, and to speak further to this, and I think I said this when this came to us in September, when you look around this table, if you're not retired, you have another full-time job, and we're fortunate, the four of us that have full-time jobs, we have very accommodating bosses. Like, I work nights, we were like, that is another piece, and I agree with Councillor Waxer on that. It'd be to attract someone else that would want to do this job that doesn't have an accommodating full-time job, because the wages we make aren't enough to sustain a life in Jasper.
Yeah, it was nice when we were all our own bosses at one time, because I'm looking at you, and then I'm looking at Scott. He still has that flexibility. Sorry, Councillor Wilson. But yes, and to touch on that note, I am very grateful that I have an employer that, understands the importance of this position and really supports us. So that was good. Councillor Malley, you had your hand up? Oh. Councillor Keller, all right. All right, I think for me, I really like the information that's on the report. From experience, I was dabbling in my support of keeping status quo, because I like to hold people accountable for attending meetings. When I'm sitting on regional boards, some people ask how our process works, and to my knowledge, maybe some of us aren't really good at handing in our paperwork in time, but I do think it does drive a little bit more in the sense of making meetings, and it makes it less easy for other things to get in the way. And that's just my position. From what I'm hearing in other jurisdictions is having a fixed salary. Sometimes there's challenges getting people to their external meetings, particularly when they have to travel. So those are kind of my concerns. I know that I would definitely appreciate the administrative relief on myself, as well as, the cumbersome time that it takes our administration to process all that. So there's a lot of things to consider. Councillor Hall, and then okay, Councillor Keller MP, and then Councillor Hall.
You sparked my brain.
Yes, that's good. That's why we're doing that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Demola. And I think everybody should be fairly compensated, and I agree with Councillor Hall and Councillor Waxer that a lot of people that in order for them to run for council, they had to give up their job or part-time. I like you and I've been very fortunate for my last 3 terms. I had a very accommodating boss. I choose my own hours. I go early to work. I go on weekends and I'm very thankful for that. Not everybody can do that. However, I've been on council for 11 years. I have to say that for new councillors, I think in having per diems and going to meetings it's a relearning experience and how important those meetings are. And I mean, I sit on a lot of regional boards and yeah, some I claim, some I don't, because I forget, like yourself, but I have to admit, like, I do like the ideas of routines. I think it's a great learning curve. It really teaches you responsibility and I'm in favor of the amount, but I would like to see the routines stay. Separate for your, and then for the meetings you go to. Because a lot of people on council, like some have less committees, some have more committees. And for fairness and for all, I think it's a real learning curve, with the meetings.
It's a real learning curve, especially when you come from someplace or a background or a work environment where people do that for you, and then when you have to do that for yourself, it can be challenging. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My question for administration, was there another potential proposed wage increase that didn't include per diem? Like, I still like the per diem structure, but I wonder if there would be another, or administration would be able to come up with another increase or another proposed wage. Because I mean, the wage proposed that is not including per diem, so it's a bit of a higher, I guess a higher first, yeah.
Deputy Mayor Pilota, and I might be supplemented by Director Nadon, who worked on the report in the early stages as well. So administration is happy to look at sort of, whatever pay level or whatever approach council wants to direct. If it was, maintaining the proposed rates while maintaining a per diem approach, that's possible. As Councillor Hall noted herself, the actual financial impact of the proposed increase is actually quite modest across all of council. But if council wanted to provide some direction to administration for any other sort of fixed amounts, I'm not sure that administration would identify any other objectively better numbers. So what we might be getting to is what does council feel is subjectively important? Administration bases recommendations in the averages of towns that have comparable complexity, although not necessarily always the same size, and administration would fully acknowledge that. Jasper is smaller of the 3 communities. But I would suggest that even though we're quite a bit smaller than Canmore, we actually have significantly more complexity than they do because of our location within a national park. So size isn't necessarily everything. I think it really does come down to whatever criteria council thinks are the most relevant. And and that's a bit of, relevancy is a bit of a subjective discussion. So I'm not sure administration will identify other numbers that were better than these. I think this is sort of our best estimate based on what we felt were relevant data. If council thinks other data is more relevant, then you can pick different numbers.
Thank you very much for that. There are any other thoughts for consideration? Go ahead, Councillor.
I'm in favor of the getting rid of the per diem. Just to speak to that, I think all the boards and committees that we're on have their, like each group have their own requirements for that board. I think if somebody was not meeting those requirements of the board, I think that the alarm would be raised and come back to the prospective councils. Just like attending meetings, like council meetings, if we are not attending enough, there's a rule set out in the MGA that suggests that if you miss this X amount of meetings, you put yourself at risk from being asked to step down. I think that same, kind of operation happens within these boards and committees. So, I don't think, there's gonna be councillors skipping out on meetings just because they can, because they're getting paid anyway. I don't believe that would be the case. Yeah, so it's good, maybe not here, but I know it's happening elsewhere, and yes, and those people are being held accountable and, been brought to question from what I understand, but it's difficult. Yeah, I do have a question for administration, if I may. I looked and I'm sorry if I missed where this is, but compensation for daycare / childcare. We had that in previous arrangements and I couldn't pinpoint where that's located in any of our policies. But I'm hoping that there is some type of consideration or compensation package for that and maybe that being excluded from the base pay if we end up going in that direction. I just think because, people have made the reference about the availability of people that are retired could accommodate more time for the responsibility. But one of the things that was brought in to help accommodate young families and that representation of demographic, if you don't have the flexibility, I'd like to see some type of compensation go forward for people that might need that. And because I don't want to discourage people from running, it's a very rewarding job. If you're into your community and you really want to help make a difference and your heart is in the community, then that it's the right place for you if you want to take your chance at running. I try to discourage people that have like a single issue that they want to run on because there's so many layers to this, and once you get in, you discover how big it is. And I don't want to discourage people. In fact, I want to promote people running for council. And I think for me, as you can keep the negativity at bay, because there are people that are gonna take shots at you and stuff, and that comes with the job, but I can't tell you how rewarding it's been for the time that we've been here. Okay, Councillor Melnick. Okay.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Demota. I personally prefer the per diem model, but could live with the base salary and not have to worry about submitting hours. Certainly, the hours vary month by month and committee to committee. And I see that the overall compensation being suggested. I think will open the doors to perhaps more people thinking about running, which is really what, at the end of it, we want to have is a good field of individuals and not have any barriers to people who choose to run. So with that, I could live with this current compensation model that's been suggested by administration. And I just think we need to make sure that individuals come the new year recognize the amount of work that's involved for the compensation.
Thank you very much. Just before I get to you, Councillor Hall, I believe Director Nadal through Mr. Given had some information on the request that I had. I was just giving you some time on the daycare compensation. Childcare. Early childhood learning.
Early care and learning.
Early care and learning.
Learning.
Okay, I apologize. I don't mean to offend anybody.
Thank
There's
you,
different levels.
Councilor Demota. Childcare expenses is the terminology used in the council compensation and admin procedures. And so those are set there, which is reflective of an older approach to policies. That content should probably be in the policy itself, not in the admin procedures. And so there's a computer allowance of up to $2,000 once a term, or $500 that could be applied to other things like cell phones, or it's a technology allowance, not just a computer allowance. And then the childcare expenses, the wording there is that members of council shall be reimbursed for reasonable childcare expenses incurred while attending meetings, conferences, conventions, or seminars in an official capacity upon submission of receipts. And I'm looking to Ms. Acorn, I don't believe we've processed any this term. So it just so happens that the counselors who have children are not of age that they require childcare. But we've had previously with other councils, we've had counselors take up that opportunity, and it is a good inclusion measure. May facilitate maybe a barrier for someone to run for council. So that is not proposed to change, and I guess we haven't run into the issue where someone submitted a lot of expenses in that sense. So even counselors that did have children of that age previously, it was pretty minimal what was claimed on that clause.
So other external purposes, having no kids, just don't worry about my receipts for doggy daycare that I have. Sorry. No, but that's good. I mean, I think there is room for revision in that administrative policy and even, you know, moving that up into a different place and maybe changing some of that wording from reasonable, because that's kind of a loose, what's reasonable and what's unreasonable, right? Everything's going to change with different councils. And that was probably a 2017 initiative, right? Because we didn't change much. So yeah, definitely something to consider with this change. Fellow councillors, any other comments? Councillor Hall, sorry, thank you.
Thank you, and just thinking about what Councillor Wilson was saying about the per diem, I wonder if this actually might, you do feel bad if you miss a meeting because you're getting paid for it, so you might actually be wanting to attend more, it's all part of your salary. And also, total increase of 24,000 from, you know, what we made this term, total make next term. I wouldn't be surprised if coming into next term and reviewing 2024's wages, we will have higher wages based on what we've been doing the last 3 months. We're busy. I feel like this might be a really good deal for residents, considering, you know, I don't want to speak for the mayor, but I don't know how much he's been in his law office since I think the 22nd of July, if not at all. And I can tell you from my personal life in the last 3 months, it's very, very much wrapped up in council duties, whether it be conversation on the street, meetings, many meetings. And I don't see it changing or getting less. In fact, I think next term will be a challenging term with lots going on. And yeah, with that, I do support the proposal.
I'm waving my hand for myself. I appreciate that, and before I get back to Director McDonald, I do want to say that when I'm talking to people, and even when I've had to give feedback to my employer, they ask me how it's going, and my part-time job that I had as council, like now I almost have 2 full-time jobs, and then, you know, through the process, again, I'm not whining, I'm just letting people know that, you know, we also have to go through, a lot of us, at a higher scale, the same things that you're dealing with your insurance company and family members that you might have in town and stuff. And so there's a lot of obligations. And I think that if anybody's considering running or the next future council, I've had people come up to me and pull me aside and say, what you guys are asking for right now is not enough. And I'm surprised, you know, because you do get both ends of the spectrum. So sometimes that's nice to hear because people see the work that you're doing, and some people don't have the understanding. And again, you're right. It's up to us to let people know what we're doing, and we could be doing better at that. But sometimes it's hard to communicate when you're just dealing with a lot of stuff that's in front of you. I saw a hand up from Director Nadell.
Thank you, Councillor DeMota. Just on the actual figures for 2023 is as good as we have for the year that is concluded. And I was just comparing, I pulled up our year-end actuals on the budget, which match our audited financial statements. So that's good news. So this may not be as telling as it was, but in terms of if it helps you navigate the discussion around the per diem or no per diem, the difference between, the counselor that got the most compensated based on those, submissions and the ones that got the less, you're looking at about $6,000 difference annually between someone who went to a lot of meetings and or did a good job of claiming them versus someone who's closer to the base wage and may or may not have as heavy of a committee load. The difference is $6,000 between the highest and the lowest.
At a nice resort that is 2 weeks in Mexico or someplace, you could probably get even longer. $6,000 is a big swing, just saying, maybe not to some, but to others. And obviously, we're not here to debate or make a decision today, it's to accept the information. Go ahead.
I think we should get it off the table today, and I'd be willing to make a motion, but I would like the councillors, if it's not that I don't support a per diem, situation, but we don't have that in front of us today, and I do support, the, scenario that we do have in front of us today, so, I would be open to making a motion unless other councillors wanted to propose, a different scenario.
I still like the per diem.
Yeah,
I just think. I think it's more I don't know, I mean, to me, it's more transparent. I think, you know, because at any time, any resident, any taxpayer can come in and look at your files, see what meetings you went to. Like, so every month, we write down our meetings and, now I'm gonna be honest, if I have a 15-minute meeting, probably 99% of the time I write 0. Because that's what me, my conscience, my taxpayer, right? Maybe I'm old fashioned, I don't know, but to me, it keeps me accountable. It's like, you know, when you put in your time sheet, this is what I've done. This is where I've represented you. This is what I've done for you. I do like the per diem. And it would be nice to see what a base salary per diem to make up that. I know it's more work for administration, but, you know, we're setting this for the next council. I think we have to look at all avenues.
yeah, and you know what, when I read the agenda on, thank you for that, on Friday, or, you know, over the weekend, we got it on Friday. I'm not gonna admit to reading it right away. I know some keeners did. But, you know, I wasn't ready to do this because I do want to get a little bit more information. And I want to also contemplate keeping the CPI in there, because I think that's important, particularly for budgetary reasons too. I know that if we have something fixed, when we go look at the next CPI jump, if you have 4 years combined at the end of it, it's going to be, you know, unless we factor in the 2% increase throughout and not have a flat X amount throughout the 4 years, I think there's still time to debate this. It's important to have this ready before we contemplate bigger things on the budget. But if we don't make a motion today, it's 2 weeks away. We're not meeting next week. So November 5th would be the next time we review it. And I think with those things considered, particularly the compensation portion of, you know, looking at the daycare and maybe tweaking a little movement there, we might have an opportunity to get some better policy work around it and have a better idea after receiving this information to make an educated motion or support for a motion the next time around. That's just me personally. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm curious, if we continue on with per diem, what would a base salary be? Are we just talking about keeping everything the same?
Well, I was kind of basing it on the new numbers, what the difference would look like.
Okay, I think Director Nadal had a response to that question as well. I saw you with your hand.
Well,
I'm not holding you up.
thank you, Councillor Demota. I don't have an answer at all in terms of that is what we're looking for from council. That is the direction you need to give us, but how would you approach an increase in wages is like in any other situation with, is it a dollar amount? Is it and then percentages always seem to attract, you know, different opportunities and issues, but that's the type of direction that administration would need in order to bring you back a package that would show specific numbers, right? So we will eventually need to get to numbers, but then the model is one thing, the increase itself is another. And then that is entirely up to your discretion of what that would look like, but that is the type of information that we need in order to put a package together for your consideration.
A small fear that I have, and it happened to me when I introduced Jasper Day a long time ago. I'm not using this as a platform to plant the seed for maybe having something that we can collectively get together and celebrate our community over. Maybe 2025 is a good time to revisit that. But what happened is we had 6 people, we were missing someone that day, and it was split council got defeated. And I think this is very important for the next 4 years. And I would like to have a little bit more time and maybe take the chance on 7 of us being available. And I feel that just a feeling on the floor right now is that we're kind of split on this, and some of us haven't really voiced where we are. So I would like to at least advocate for a little bit of extension before we make a motion on the decision. That's just me. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. If we were to continue with per diem but adopt these new salaries, we might be looking at like a $95,000 increase over the year, because these proposed salaries include our meetings. It would be a much bigger increase.
That's not what I meant. I meant the increase, take out what a base salary, look at it, you know, it needs a little bit more work on administration, but look at what a new base salary would be, what per diems would be. Not per diems plus the.
We still have opportunity for motions. So whatever they may be, whether there's direction to come back or to move something forward, I'll encourage it either way. Councillor Waxer.
This isn't for a motion, but you had indicated some of us hadn't expressed our preference. I'd be happy either way, although I agree with Councillor Wilson that having a determined determined salary might be the thing that makes it easier for someone to make a decision as to whether to run. And I also like to think that anyone with a heart for service would have pride in a job well done and would, as part of the process of running for election, would absolutely be committed to attending the meetings that they commit to. And so but that said, I'm not opposed to filling out a timesheet either, but I think generally you would like to think that people who run for office are committed to participating to the fullest extent.
Thank you, Councillor Waxer. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, and to continue on with Councillor Waxer's words, this would allow somebody who wants to run for council or for mayor the knowledge that they don't have to have another full-time job, or they don't need a flexible boss that gives them the time off that they could potentially contribute to their family with this wage.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Well, I'm not opposed to deferring it until a future council meeting. I think we can do that, but we also if there needs to be a motion on the table that directs the administration, or the same information will come back to us. There's no direction, but I am willing to make the motion for a proposed salary increases in front of us, but if there is no other direction from other councillors.
Councillor John.
I'm prepared to make a motion by council direct administration to propose a different compensation model that is including per diems.
Okay. So clarify based on
based on the current proposal.
Okay, all right.
We see the model differently.
Looking for you, I'm looking at you to see if you're clear on the ask, or maybe ask for more clarification.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor Demota, for Councillor Keller, MP's motion, certainly administration wants to make sure we're supporting council by making effective motions that get across the point the mover wants to make. So if I'm understanding the intent of the motion would be that administration go away and return with a model that has a base salary and per diems. The fact is that's the current model that exists today. And so the motion doesn't seem to propose any change to that. Really, the essence of the question is, what do you want to change? I mean, it could be the council maintain the current system, continue to allow CPI increases to happen naturally every year, and make no other changes. A motion would be for that, which is kind of what it sounds like Councillor Keller's motion is, would be the council maintain the current council remuneration structure for the 2025 term. Period. And it's just like, we confirm that we're staying with the same approach as we have today. And that's clear direction to administration.
If I may,
Yeah.
I think what I'm understanding is that we have new information in front of us, we have a different comparison in front of us. And the salary that has been proposed here for future council, we have different numbers, so what our findings are with these numbers that are proposed, are they accurate to what we're getting paid right now? I think that's the, Councillor Keller, I believe, is looking to see what the base rate might be with comparison to the other municipalities, because we have a proposed salary base, but we don't have a base rate proposal in front of us, do we?
The way I'm reading this, it's all inclusive, but there's a raise in there all over, but what I'm asking for is base rate, the per diems that equals the pay increase that you're proposing in here.
Yeah, so we have different comparators, and there's different numbers out there that we're on. I understand what Councillor Keller is saying. Do you understand?
Well, for clarification, I think that if we took an average amount of meetings for, so it's what we get paid on top of. So what our per diem, rate for the year is on top of our salary. So and take that number like an average out of all 6 councillors or whatever, and then subtract that from the proposed 36? That could be our new base rate, and then we could remain per diem, using our per diem system to fill from, say it's 24,000 to fill to the 36,000, whatever it is, right? But you take an average of the per diem rate over the last year like there's a certain amount of, it's in the budget, there's 2 different lines. The one line is salary, and the one line is I'm not sure what that is.
All right, so before I go to Councillor Hall and I go to the Director Nedell, the numbers that we have right now are based on the decision that was made in 2017. The last decision on council was to keep the same rate with CPI included. So now we've gone back to the well and we have different areas that we've researched and we've got different numbers in front of us. And I think what Councillor Keller MP is like, what's the base salary information on that research? So I think that's kind of where I'm going. Councillor Hall, I think there might be an answer for some clarification there. So is it okay if I go to Director Nedell? Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Demota. I think we're narrowing on a solution, or a proposed motion anyway. So maintaining the model is one approach, and that's clear. And then I don't have the numbers in front of me for what the base rate is currently. But if I understand correctly, the discussion, it would be apply the new proposed numbers, but to the current model and see where that takes us. And we could provide that information, but as long as everyone understands that the base rate is consistent for everyone, but that also does not reflect the budget. And the budget itself currently, Director Malinchak and I sort of look at trends and who claims what, and if you look at in the operating budget, each of your lines is different. Because some of you, depending on the number of committees you're assigned to and how you claim them, and like I said, there's about a $6,000 difference between the person who claims the most and the person who claims the less, so it's not an exact science. We can provide information on what the increase in the base rate would be. And come up with a updated number for how much you would get compensated for these under 3 hours out of town.
Can I make it easy for you? Don't use those numbers. Use what the new research shows what the average counselor is getting paid in those communities based on a base number, base salary number. We have one in front of us that is a salary-based proposal. And I think we're just looking with the current model, not looking at our past expenses, looking at what the base model might look like for like a current model base pay, what the new number, because the old number we have is from 2017 and we've only had CPI. That was based on certain scenario on certain communities. And now we have a new one. We've gone, but we've only got a salary-based proposal in front of us. We don't have a base salary proposal in front of us. I think it's that, for me, it's very clear. And I'm finding that there is kind of a misunderstanding in the directive, because we're not looking at what all of us individually just got last year, right?
No, we're looking at proposed new rates.
Yeah, proposed new rates.
Yeah, in our old method.
Okay. While they're looking at that, Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Based on my math in 2023, we averaged each 33,733. That's what we each took home on average. If that helps. And that's just going into the website and adding up the numbers that are all there for transparency, public information. Proposed in 2025 is a jump up of just under $14,000 for all 6 of us.
I think we all understand. I think it's just having a comparison to the same model that we have with a different number, not the current number.
Deputy Mayor, administration is certainly happy to help with a couple of things for clarity. As Director Nadon mentioned, in our budget, because we have to do a budget for all these sorts of things. Council salary, there's an individual line for each council member's salary. And you'll see that there is salaries, benefits, and I believe on some there are honoraries, but salaries and benefits. Benefits are benefits, health, dental, so benefits are a different thing. Benefits are not per diems. Per diems are reflected in the salary line. Except for where there's 3 that say honorarium meetings. In any case, so if you're looking at our audited financial statements, there's one column for salary that's reflective, and that salary line would be what the council member earned through the combination of the base salary and the compensation provided for attendance at meetings per diems would be reflected in that salary line, and that's why there's a difference between council members. Administration is happy in any case. So, Deputy Mayor, what you're suggesting though of a updated version of the current model, no problem, administration can do that. What number do you want the base salary to be? And
I think that's the question. What's the information available based on those other? We didn't ask you to have a base or a salary model. You came up with that based on the information that you see. So I think what Councillor Keller is asking is like, what would be the new base salary based on that information? Just not even thinking about 2023.
Absolutely, Deputy Mayor, and administration in the report in front of you provided the base salaries of a number of different comparator communities. We're happy to have council choose whichever ones you think are the most relevant. Administration suggested that the most relevant would be the mountain town comparator communities. And so if council disagrees with that or thinks that other ones are more relevant, that's fine. Council could, the options that are available to you are, as I said, maintain the current system, make no changes, and just allow CPI to continue to apply. Council could say, maintain the current system, updating the base salary to blank, effective, 2025, following the 2025 election, and allow nature to take its course, right? But it's that filling in the blank. And administration provided in the report from September a bunch of different comparators. The council can, the numbers of 36,000 as the base salary seem too high for council, considering that you would like to also maintain on top of that base salary per diems. No problem. Pick a lower number. Administration, but I think it's difficult for administration to say, well, it should be 1% lower, 5% lower, 10% lower, 100. Yeah. So really, council can decide. And one thing that I think all of the struggle is you're doing the best you can for the community, trying to think about some future people that are going to be sitting in your chairs and what's the best for them.
Exactly. Okay, so there's at least 3 of us, I think, that are in support of keeping or looking at a model that's similar to what we have right now. And it's gonna be up to us to go and get that and come up with that information, whether we do that collectively or on our own. I can come up with the number that I think would be right, and if it doesn't fit, then we can have 2 weeks to make that proposal at the next council meeting, and then we can have a debate on that. If someone wants to make a motion to keep the presentation in front of us, that's in front of us, we can do that. So I'm in favor today. I would like to advocate to someone on council to receive the public input summary for information, and then we can have this come forward to the next council.
I can withdraw my motion.
No, that's good. I don't think they understand the motion, so
I understand what Ms. Sealing is saying. He's saying that in my motion, I should have a number in there for the base salary. And then the dues would go around that base number. And so I am looking at right now at all the salaries like the back. I'm just looking at what I think that base number should be.
all right. This is why I think it's just, I don't understand why we're doing math on the fly here. I think we just, I can. Yeah, let's take a 5-minute recess and then we'll come back. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm looking at you guys for help, so. All right, welcome back, everybody. I think we have some momentum to move forward, and I apologize to administration if I'm coming across the wrong way. As I've said before, I do get frustrated when I have my own failure to communicate, and that's where the frustration is coming from. So, yes, I made in public.
So I will clarify my motion.
Thank you.
I make a motion to keep the current model, to come back with the indicator of mountain towns. Showcased in our current model.
Just figured it so I think I heard
Council would direct administration to return back to a future meeting.
to maintain the current remuneration model and incorporate the average of the mountain towns in the base salary
Yes.
for review. Okay. Is the direction for I'm looking at Councillor Keller, is the direction for administration to return to the committee with that information or actually will be committee, police, to return to committee with that information or for council to approve that today? That's the only other bit that's undefined.
Returns today.
Thank you.
Or the next regular meeting, because I think the first meeting in November 5th is regular.
Committee, I'm not here.
Okay, all right, so that'll be November
14.
14th,
12.
12th. There's actually something happening on that day, whether we might have budget and,
Well, I will be honest, I will not be here on November 5th, so please
Okay.
proceed without me to, but I will probably send my comments.
so it's a committee, we'll keep your initial request. I'm not gonna. So we'll keep it as committee. That's your motion, I want
That's my
to,
motion.
and you understand the motion? Does everybody understand the motion? Councillor Wilson?
When we're meeting with the same model, there has been changes in, meeting, remuneration for meetings. Maybe it was, between two different terms, I'm not sure, but, there might be a need to revisit what a 3-hour meeting is, what a 1-hour meeting is, so there, I think we might have to revisit that as well. I know it has changed in my time.
Well, every November it goes up with CPI
Okay.
for regular, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's what it is, yeah.
Okay.
So for half day, full day, out of town.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I support the motion and I want to be clear for residents watching, this is not for the 6 of us who's here on the table right here. This is for future council, including some of you that might be tuning in.
Here, here. All right, I understand the motion. Do we have any more debate or questions for clarity? Okay, I will call. All in favor? Opposed? None, that's carried. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Do any councillors have notices of motion? Moving on to, even though we just kind of did that a little bit. For agenda item number 7, number 8, councillor reports. Okay, there's none. I'm kidding. Councillor Mallon, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Demoda. So last Thursday, Councillor Hall and myself had the opportunity to be in Hinton for the Community Teachers West Yellowhead monthly meeting. And that, of course, meant traveling out of town. Tonight, when we're finished here, I do have a Yellowhead Historical Society monthly meeting as well. Just an indication for individuals that sometimes the days start at 9:30 in the morning and your council day may not end until 9:30 at night.
Okay. Let's get, any feedback from the Community Futures road trip?
Councillor Hall might be able to assist. We did talk about the current offering that is Community Futures with a loan here for Jasper businesses and the take up on that. And then we did have a number of debriefs about the Community Futures network and also the conference that was attended by both the executive director and the president, and the chairman. And we did hear from the other municipalities what was going on in each of their locations. They are going through this exact process of council remuneration and organizational meeting and going into budgets.
That's good. Councillor Hall?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Demoda, and just to, add a bit more to our, community futures, Westfield had a meeting last week, just concern around our small business community and our small business owners, that make Jasper unique and authentic, and why people love it here so much when they come into a coffee shop that we are served by the owner and their daughter's doing dishes, and there's, yeah, like there's genuine concern. And also hope moving forward with what Melican spoke to, or sorry, Councilor Melican spoke to.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hall. Anybody else have any reports? Okay, Councillor Hall?
Thank you once again. Yesterday, myself, Director Nadal, and CEO Gibbon had the pleasure of meeting our Lieutenant Governor of Alberta, Her Honor Selma Lefkani. And her husband gave me a tour of the fire hall. It was a great meeting. She was lovely. I know she did more around town yesterday, but I just wanted to extend my appreciation for her and her husband traveling out to Jasper yesterday.
Thank you. It's an honor. Okay, anyone else? Okay, that moves us to agenda item number 9, upcoming events. We have those in front of us. Does anybody else have anything that might be missing on here that we should be conscious of? All right. If I might have some help from my team here and maybe administration, we have our organizational meeting agenda. We also have an in-camera session to get into. I'm wondering if it would be healthy and advisable to take a bit of a break, again, another 5 minutes, to get into our organizational meeting. So can we suspend our regular meeting, move into organizational, and then come back? Because what I'm afraid of, just for congruency here, is to deal with the organizational meeting, and then we don't have to invite anybody back from the community that may be watching this live. Is that helpful? Do you think that's helpful? Okay, I'm just looking at process and what we're allowed to do as administratively.
I think we may have to extend this council meeting beyond 4 hours.
Okay, is that a motion?
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor to extend our regular council meeting of October 22nd, 2024 beyond the designated time of 4 hours. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. All right, so if I may, if we could recess from that and then come back if I may lean across the table here and ask administratively, how do we make that work? Mr. Gibbon?
Yeah, Deputy Mayor Demoda, I think what we would just do is recess the regular council meeting, and then enter into the organizational meeting, conclude the organizational meeting, and then pursue no regular meeting.
Okay, that's what I intended, and as long as we're on side with that, council is comfortable, I think that would be the best thing to do for everyone concerned. Good, all right, I'll call it recess, back at 2:55. All right, so just to clarify, we are in recess. We have recessed our regular meeting of council today, and now I'm going to call to order the organizational meeting of October 22nd, 2024. Councilors, you have the approved agenda or a proposed agenda in front of you. Are there any additions, deletions, or other considerations to be made for today's discussion? Okay, none being forwarded. Councillor Melnick, are you moving to approve the agenda? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we're at agenda item 3, meeting schedule. We're here to set the date, time, and place for regular meetings. Councilors, any Debate, questions, motions that want to be made here? Topics for conversation? Things to consider? Councillor Keller-Rendy?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and to you, to Mr. Gibbon. So currently we're in council all the time. So I think once we set these dates, then we will go into 2025 with the new meeting schedule, right?
Mayor Demota or Councillor Keller-Rendy. So following this organizational meeting, we go back into the regular cycle of committee of the whole meeting, followed by a council meeting the following week. So that more standard pattern that the community and council are used to, allowing for new topics to be introduced at the committee of the whole meeting and for final decisions to be made at subsequent regular council meetings. That would be following this organizational meeting and start in November. So it wouldn't be 25, it'd still be for the balance of this council year.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, my mic is dead. This is a question I get from residents quite often, and I'm not making any motions, but I'm curious, have we ever considered meeting occasionally in the evenings?
Deputy Mayor Demota, from an administrative perspective, I'll say that we haven't discussed that this term. Certainly it's up to council to define what you wish your meeting schedule to be. There are other municipalities across the province that meet in the evening times. So that's possible. There is a different administrative complexity to that. We now have administration that may be taking time off during the day to compensate for meeting in the evening, or we have administration that's working longer days. We can certainly adapt to any of that, recognizing the municipality, the economy of Jasper. There may also be future council members that would meet in the evening. So there's some complexities to that, but to my knowledge, administration hasn't discussed it this term. Other members of council who've been on longer may have some different reflection of whether that's ever been discussed in the previous council tables.
I think I might back on now, maybe I just didn't hit the button hard enough. The reason I ask in the feedback I get from residents is that not only may it allow for other residents to come to our meetings, it might attract a different kind of person to run the council seat. I might have brought a 9-to-5 job or a teacher or something in that profession, but again, I'm not making motions. I just wanted to put it out there and see if it's ever been considered, if we've actually ever met, or this council in the last 22 years has ever had evening meetings.
Yeah, and you know what, from my experience, we've tried it out and maybe haven't tried it out long enough, but in the past, probably seen a similar response to the gallery now. I just do want to remind you that the proposed meeting schedule that's in front of us for 2025 ends with our regular meetings in October because we have an election right before that. So the new organizational meeting, the next one, will determine dates and times for the first year of the next term. So right here, we're just considering right now, and if someone came prepared with proposals for a new meeting time, then that'd be a good time to discuss that and debate it. Councilor Wilson.
Yeah, I would make the motion that council set the date for regular council meetings for the 2025, let's call it 2025 council year. The first and third Tuesdays at 1:30, and the committee of the whole meetings to the second and fourth Tuesdays at 9:30. Remaining in essence the same as what we have been doing now.
And that's for 2024-25 as presented in the calendar. I think that's what the recommendation is.
Yeah, that's correct.
So I'm reading that Councilor Wilson's putting both motions in one to accept the current model with the new schedule, with the updated schedule.
Deputy Mayor Demoda, that's how I would understand it, that if there is no need to make any difference between what's proposed, certainly the motion can handle both those pieces of business.
Great. I like your style. Okay, if everybody understands that, is there any debate? Shall I call it to order? All in favor? Unopposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. So I guess that encompasses all three. Okay. Director Meadow.
Thank you, Councillor Demoda. I think we got the essence of the information here. So the date, time and location for regular meetings and for committee of the whole meetings as indicated on the calendar. Although I think item 3.3 still needs a bit of discussion, so that approving the calendar itself, and there are a few more items that we would like to discuss. Namely, I mean, if you were to approve the meeting calendar as presented, that includes a council break at the end of July is one of the differences. And then the one in particular that I would like to bring your attention to is what is currently showed in purple on the calendar, which is proposed. And so that would be that no meeting would be held between nomination day and election day. So the opening of nominations for the 2025 municipal election is January 1st, which I believe January 2nd is the actual first business day after that. So people can start submitting their nomination papers starting in January, but then I have yet to fully ascertain the date, but I believe it's September 22nd is actual nomination day. So by noon that day, and we will confirm and advertise that date, would be the deadline for submissions. And then through our work on the procedure bylaw with the legislative committee, we've sort of determined from looking at other towns and just from our own experience with best practice between nomination day and election day, that a break in council meetings, so not having any council meetings in what is effectively the campaign period, seems to be best practice and would be administration's recommendation for the upcoming calendar. So that is a change from what we've done in the past, and that's why we put it in purple and wrote it down as proposed for your consideration. If the new procedure bylaw was in place, then it would be an automatic thing we would have presented and you would have approved, hopefully. But then given that we're still in a draft version with that procedure bylaw, we wanted to give you the opportunity to discuss that change. So depending on the outcome there, those cells would become white or no meeting, or if you're not in favor of that proposal, then they would continue on the regular committee and regular meeting cycle. So that is specifically for September 23rd, October 7th, and October 14th.
Council.
I would make a motion that council approve the 2024 council meeting calendar as presented.
Thank you. Any debate or questions or thoughts? Go ahead, Councillor Keller.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Demoda, to you to Director Nadal. When you're sitting on committees, and your committees work on this time of the proposed between nomination day and election, do you continue to sit on your committees?
Councillor Demoda, through to Councillor Keller, I believe so. I think this is specifically around committee of the whole and regular meetings. So yes, I think your other committee work would continue as per their regular schedule.
Okay. And if I may say too, we might have some emergent issues or need some time at the end to tie up some loose ends that we need to sign off on to finish this term off. So just because it's here, we decide on it today, doesn't mean it's written in stone. And with enough lead time, we can add extra meetings beforehand if council feels it's necessary and reasonable at the time. So I'm okay with accepting it today, so I'm okay. Anyone else? Thoughts? All right, I'll call to question. All in favor? That's carried. And just for clarification, I was under the assumption that we had a summer break this year and It's a similar format to, extended summer break. Sorry, I apologize for that. But we did have one scheduled, and I think that this one kind of emulates a similar model. And again, if there's merchant, things that we need to deal with at the time, we can reconsider that as we get closer. Okay. We are moving to, number 4, deputy mayor postings and length of office, 4.1. Is there anything to speak to that? Does everybody understand the calendar that's in front of us? It's pretty straightforward. I think, we all put in our requests and does everybody understand the schedule in front of them? I'm gonna go Councillor Waxer first and then Councillor Melvin.
Thank you. My only concern is, my accommodation in Jasper ends, April 30th, so that is probably the least, stable time of my life. So if anybody might be willing to switch, one of these shifts, I would be happy to do that. Otherwise, because it may be, if I'm not able to be in the community at that time, it may be difficult to chair meetings in that period.
Okay. Councillor Wilson, you're offering to switch to, January 1st, or sorry, you want to swap January 1st?
Sure.
Okay, so then where there's Wilson, there will be Waxer, and where there's Waxer, there will be Wilson? Okay, so the proposed change would to have, Councillor Waxer from January 1st to February 28th, 2025, with the current alternate deputy mayor as Councillor Keller MP. And then, alternate deputy mayor switching from, Councillor Wilson to Councillor Waxer from March 1st to April 30th. And then just to be clear, May 1st to June 30th is now Councillor Wilson. And the next switch would be July 1st to August 31st, where we see Councillor Wilson as alternate deputy mayor. And we're all clear on that? All right. Councillor Hall?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My accommodation ends on March 31st. I wonder if I need to be concerned with that. I'm quite confident after yesterday's announcement that I might have a place to live, but I don't know if I should address that.
Okay, well, currently your assignment is July 1st to August 31st, so.
My accommodation is done, March 30th, like what, I'll be here.
Right. I think you can still be busy in here.
I'll just leave it.
Boy, I'll help you make adjustments.
No.
Does anybody have any further debate? Councillor Wilson?
I would make a motion that council approve, deputy mayor and, deputy alternate deputy mayor schedule rotating on a 2-month term commencing November 1st, 2024 as amended.
Motion on the floor, any debate? Right. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Right. Fatigue setting in, folks. Need an opportunity, welcoming an opportunity for some levity here. Okay, so now we have committee structure for 2024-2025. Agenda item 5 brings us to 5.1, list of boards and committees. Now we have a suggestion that council approve the list of committees and boards for the year 2024 to 2025 as presented. Does anybody else have any considerations to be made or changes or thoughts? Are we all comfortable with the schedule? Can I welcome a motion to what I just read out loud? Councillor Melnick, are you ready? You don't have to repeat it.
No, I would make that motion.
All right, beautiful. All in favor? That's carried. All right. So we approved the list of boards and committees with no changes. And what about the appointments? So that moves us to 5.2. The recommendation is that council appoint councillors to boards and committees as follows. So we could just do that as presented. Is there any debate on that? Would somebody like to make the motion? Councillor Wax is making the motion.
The council appoint councillors to boards and committees as illustrated.
All in favor? That's carried. Okay, that moves us to agenda item 6, 6.1, under strategic priorities. Strategic priorities for 2022 to 2026. Are there any changes, recommendations to be made to what our current structure is? CA will get it.
Deputy Mayor Demota, I just wanted to acknowledge, in the public view that council has had some discussion about strategic priorities at the recent Alberta Municipalities Conference, where they had a high-level discussion about the priorities, and I think acknowledge that although wildfire recovery is a priority for council, all of the previously established priorities support the concept of recovery, and so that consistency, I think, was acknowledged that the focus of our efforts changes, but the principles that council has previously adopted can be sustained through the recovery phase. Just want to acknowledge that council has discussed these previously in the context of recovery, and that the priorities are still relevant.
Thank you for very much for that clarification, and you said that way better than I could. Councillor Waxer.
I was just going to say that that was very well worded, but I wondered if there's a possibility or a way we could incorporate that very statement in some way to the document as an update as of this date, because someone looking at our strategic priorities and us just passing it might seem as if we're ignoring the elephant in the room, and that it was, and this is a very important event in our history, and we have had that conversation, and the way that you worded that, I feel could be comforting to people, that we have recognized, we acknowledge that, and we see our stated strategic priorities as the path forward to recovery.
Well, I think administration would probably like a little bit clearer direction from us that was going to be, and then, a message from the mayor. We don't have him here today to adjust that part of the strategic priorities. However, having said that, if the mayor does want to make changes, or there is a proposed change to consider, that is something that we can still move on and not have that part of the organizational meeting. We can defer that to a regular meeting from this one. Councillor Malik, you have a solution?
The other opportunity is to make the concern in the form of a motion that this council reaffirms its commitment to the strategic priorities, given the wildfire, and has had the opportunity to have discussions for these priorities, reaffirm our commitment to rebuilding the community. And so by passing that motion, we've acknowledged that we've had discussions regarding the importance of the various priorities in the rebuilding.
Deputy Mayor Demota, the administration could certainly acknowledge that in the motion adopting the priorities, so council motion, if I'm hearing Councillor, Melvin correctly, that council affirm the strategic priorities, 2022 to 2026, and recognizing that in the context of wildfire recovery, they continue to be relevant.
That sounded exactly what you just said, and that's the motion we're sticking to.
That's the motion. I think it captures the concerns that Councillor Waxer had, that we did address the strategic priorities for the next 4 years.
I appreciate the concern, and I also appreciate the collaborative effort to get that moved forward today. Any other questions, considerations for this debate? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Good job. Appreciate you guys. All right, so that being completed, in accepting the strategic priorities, that gives us an opportunity for adjournment. We have a motion to adjourn the organizational meeting of October 22nd, 2024 at 3:20. Councillor, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So having completed the organizational meeting agenda, we are still in recess for our regular meeting. And for the help of transition and maybe other parties concerned, we have the last item on the agenda. That's number 10 in camera, the Recovery Advisory Committee appointments. I can't guarantee when we're gonna come back from making those appointment decisions. We have a little bit of work to do in the discussion. And then we're gonna return back to that. So, for those of you that are watching, I might ask, unless we get another recommendation, we will probably make the assignments after that, if council's ready, and then, followed by an adjournment. So that could be viewed later on YouTube. Do I have any other considerations or recommendations for that? Administration, you're okay with that? Does that work for everybody? Okay. So having said that, I will accept a motion to move in camera at 3:22. Councillor Melvin.
I so move.
Thank you.
All question?
All in favor?
All in favor? Okay. Can you do that when you just said? Can you say I move that we do that?
If like someone
I
has
think
to,
I did.
you might find this.
We didn't truck out over there, did you?
Okay.
Like the tower? Yeah,
Dogamic,
What's going on?
I can't figure.
the tower's turned off, that's why it's. Sorry. It's recording in progress. These are a few of appropriate things. All right, we're back. It is 3:53 PM on the 22nd. Do I have a motion to come out of camera? Motion by Councillor Hall, all in favor? All right, now we're resumed to regular meeting. We have come to a decision on appointments to the Recovery Advisory Committee. And like to see a motion from someone who's prepared for delivering that. Councillor Melnick.
I would like to put forward the following names, a motion to put forward the following names for the advisory committee for the pardon me. Recovery Advisory Committee, thank you. And the two names that I would put forward are Dana Ruddy and also Brooklyn Rushton.
we have recommendation for appointments, a motion for the two appointments to the Recovery Advisory Committee. Are there any questions or debate to have on that in public that we need to have? All right, I move, we have a motion on the floor, all in favor? Not opposed, that's carried. Thank you very much for the collaborative debate. And we do have the criteria that we had to, the nomination process for that. So I appreciate the work that we put behind there. And I'd also like to thank everybody that's applied. I think that was very important for the community, and I think those are two very good candidates after the discussion we've had. So thank you very much. That brings us to the very end of our regular meeting agenda today, and it is 3:55. Having no further business, may I get a motion to adjourn the regular meeting of October 22nd? Councillor Waxer, all in favor? Thank you, everybody.